Sure. Hello. I can't seem to not be running a bit late lately. So I gotta get my earbud put in. What's up, everyone? Ready for this nonsense? Hello, Queen. Frazzled. Louie. Try me, bitch. Hello, guys. You're so annoyed you slept till noon. That sounds awesome. Sounds amazing. Hello, Jeffrey. Hi. Good morning, Maze. Good to see you. I feel like his people aren't doing very well. They really can't, though. I don't see how well they could do because oh, for what? You made a community post thanking me. For what? What'd I do? You are here, Frazzled. Yes, you are. I'm so happy that you are. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously he's not going to have great witnesses. What could they say, right? Oh, did you get it? Oh, okay, good. I'm glad you got it. Very nice, very nice. I know I got, I think 5, maybe more, 5 or 6 things sent out on Saturday. And then I started making other stuff for this one. I made myself a shirt. I rarely do that, but do you like it? I had it in the computer, the design, for quite a while. So really I just cut it and I know. I'm so glad she did too. And you know what? Yeah, what she got was the shirt and the gift pack you put together, Queen. That was from Queen too. Queen brought that pack over. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Hi, Lynn. Oh. I know. Somebody in this chat gave me the best compliment the other day that really, really touched me. Like I could not have said it better myself for what I wish. As if that makes any sense. It was you, Love Louie. It was you. That really touched me a lot. Seriously, I felt very I was very, very happy. Oh. See, that is so sweet. But yeah, life is not boring. That's for sure. I never get bored though, really. I don't. Not too much. One thing always made me laugh so hard. Many years ago, my ex-husband said to me, do you ever get bored? And I go, I don't. I don't think I do. I'm good with nothing, doing nothing because like I can always. And he was all, I know. And that's what I hate about you. Yeah, that guy had ants in his pants all the damn time, drove me out of my freaking mind. Like, why don't you take a damn relax a minute? I know. I just don't get bored. No, but I always find something to do. That's just it. I always can I just always, no matter what, I can figure out something to do. I don't have to be running amok. I don't like to run amok, actually. But I really think this is going to be over quick. I do. I'm happy about that. Queen, how is your mother-in-law? I've been thinking about her so much lately, but I haven't asked you. I've been meaning to. So I think this is going to be over with soon. But I'm telling you guys, I'm starting to want to say something really weird about this Sebastian Rogers shit. Has this become the biggest fucking mess you've ever seen or what? From everyone. From creators to the parents. I really don't want to be labeled as a nut job or anything, but there is part of me that really wants to say, is there a Sebastian Rogers? Because literally, I don't feel like anybody's actually trying to find him. This is fighting and carrying on. And I know I'm not even watching probably, I bet you I am not watching even, I don't know. I'm not watching half of it, at least. There's a shit ton I am missing, that's for sure. It is a shit show, isn't it? I have to wonder, maybe this is all made up. You hear nothing from the police, not a single thing. Right, that's what I'm saying. I don't even try to watch it. The little bits that I catch, I'm thinking this has got to be like, maybe this is not even real. It is so gross. I cannot even stand it. I did think that I liked the father. I don't even like him now. I don't think there's anybody here that's really trying to find a child. I think so too, Maze. I think so too. I know I'm not trying necessarily to watch it, but I do catch something here and there. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Why the fuck are these parents out there fighting with everybody and on panels carrying on about shit? It just is wild. I don't know. There's just something very strange about that story because, I mean, are the parents actually, I never have heard this, but I heard about it, I think, that the stepdad actually like went on a channel with using a voice changer thing or something. Like, what? If your kid's missing, what the fuck are you even doing talking to these people? Crazy. Yeah, you're right, Frazzle. And I never saw all the Summer Wells shit. I never saw not the craziness online. when it was happening, I didn't see it. I only kind of see some of it now, but this is another thing. Okay, I get people that want to talk about creators that talk about this every single day, all day, when they have nothing to say. Yeah, I get that. My problem is, why does everybody just because you don't like the creators and the creators are on Seth's side, you decide that you like Chris and Katie? Why does it have to be that way? People who don't like people who cover Summer Wells have decided they like Dawn and Candace. That doesn't make any sense to me. Who the fuck likes Dawn and Candace? Under it, regardless of any circumstance, those people are some fucked up people. Right. Exactly, Maze. And not only that, no, well, this is the thing. I would want the word out there for sure, but I would not be on panels fighting with other people. No, I don't think they have good intentions either. I understand that. No, that's what I mean. I'm not saying that I'm defending the people doing it, but I don't know how a person defends Dawn and Candace. I think it's all a fucking mess and it's all gross. Every bit of it. I really cannot stand. You see people before Sebastian. I talked about this too, you guys. There were people still talking about Summer Wells every single day. Hashtag Summer Wells, hashtag Summer Wells. What are you talking about at this point? What are you saying? There's nothing to be said. It's just so wild to me. I'm just blown away. I'm just like, am I missing something? I'm starting to think that Sebastian never even was a person. Like, now, see, you'll hear people saying I'm a fucking nut job. And maybe I am. Because I just think it is so crazy. I don't know how to. I like none of the parents. Yeah, shoot it right. Right. Exactly. Well, and that's what, you know what? How many times people are like, oh, Jack, are you going to talk about this or talk about that? I'm like, why would I? There's nothing to say. This is why it just has become something that I cannot believe. And like I said for a while, breaking news, stop it. Stop it. There's no breaking news. Never has been. What did somebody on here say? I died laughing one day. Somebody in chat said, breaking news, we're gonna have the phone lines open today. Right. That's not breaking news either, but that is what you're gonna do. Oh my Lord. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Yeah, exactly. I would not be on the panel. Yeah, that breaking news makes me want to. This sounds really bad. Like, I really went and because I went and unsubbed to people, not that I really care, but I keep catching like these keeps coming up for me. And I'm like, I don't even want to know that you're going to try to talk about this again. I don't even want to see it anymore. Turn off notifications, whatever, because, you know, I can normally just ignore that. I don't think that much about it, but this Sebastian shit's got me like so over it. It's ridiculous. I don't think any of the parents are behaving right. Anyway, that's my big thing. Hey, Canine. I just feel like I have to say it because I'm like, wow. Innocence Project bullshit. What do you? I don't know what that is, Lynn. I don't know what you mean. Hey, Beck. Oh wow. Okay, something's been turned on. The Dodge truck. Yeah, you're right. You are right with that. What is on? Okay, I got to get this going because that child has turned something on.
This is Chad Daybell. This
I got to
is
get out.
continuing with the defense case in chief today. As we left off yesterday, I believe Joseph Murray was on the stand, and I'll note that the jurors have each returned and signed their juror affirmation for the day.
I'll be right back.
If we're ready to proceed then with additional testimony, we'll go ahead and have the jurors brought in at this time, please.
Hey, what the heck's going on? Okay, there we go. Well, it's a toy that he has turned on. Isn't that awesome? God, holy crap.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Uh-oh. Oh, sorry to hear that, Trimey.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We are on the record on CR 22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Daybell.
Be
We're
careful,
continuing with the
K9.
defense case in chief. The court would note the jurors are all
There's
returned and present,
storms
properly
and
seated.
weather and all
Jurors
that.
have each signed their juror affirmation that they followed the court's admonishing instruction yesterday as he left. So thank you again for continuing to follow that as you have throughout this trial. The witness is on the stand, Mr. Murray, who's previously been placed under oath. We were continuing with direct examination when we broke for the day yesterday, or I think, did we complete direct examination?
Yes, Judge.
Okay,
yes, Your Honor.
Thank you for the reminder then. Direct had concluded, so we'll start on cross-examination at this time. And is that going to be you, Mr. Wixom?
It will, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Wixom, then if you'd like to commence with your cross, you may do so.
Thank you.
I know, Lynn. That's what I'm saying. Just because I am just as fed up with everybody else.
May I ask to be provided with
People
the
talking
state's
about 'em.
previously admitted exhibit 77G as in George?
Yes.
They are a whole damn mess.
And Judge, again, what exhibit did he reference?
77G.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I begin while the clerk's looking for that?
Yes, if you'd like, you may.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Ms. Murray.
Morning.
So I want to start this morning by revisiting the questions you were asked by the defense counsel yesterday. Do you remember when you first took the stand, he had asked you to explain to the jury how many times that you had met with him?
Yes.
And do you remember what your answer was to that?
Once 2 days ago
You've been
and
cheating?
one other time.
Is that what you're
on the
saying,
phone.
Shabby?
Okay.
You
Now,
don't need to brag about it.
you wouldn't disagree, would you, that the loss of Tammy Daybell would be and
I'm
was
just
a
kidding.
traumatic experience for your wife and for her siblings?
Absolutely. Not. I absolutely would agree that that would be the case.
Likewise, would you agree that the finding of Tylee and JJ's bodies on Chad's property was likewise a traumatic experience?
Yes, for the whole family, indeed.
So it would be safe to say then that over the course of the last 5 years, you have probably had many conversations with your spouse about the surrounding facts, haven't you?
Yes.
And likewise, is it also safe to say that you've had many conversations with her siblings about these same situations?
Not, I wouldn't say many, but because we didn't live in the same household and we weren't gathering weekly even. So I wouldn't say many.
But you did have conversations over the course of the last 5 years with his siblings.
Yes.
You said that you didn't live in the same house with them? Is that what you said?
With the exception of one brother, one of Emma's brothers. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll come back to that. With respect to the events of October 9th, you were asked some questions about the layout of your house relative to Chad Daybell's, and you explained that your house is kitty corner.
Correct.
And you'd also referenced in your testimony that you've testified previously about these things in a grand jury proceeding.
Correct.
And that would have been roughly May of 2021.
Correct.
And Mr. Pryor had asked you some questions relative to your testimony in that proceeding. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Okay. And those questions in part were directed towards your information about this October 9th attempted shooting of Tammy.
Correct.
Now, I just want to be clear. In your grand jury testimony, and I believe yesterday you confirmed that you did not see the attempted shooting.
That is correct.
And in fact, you weren't even aware of the shooting until after you received a 911 notification.
Notification on Facebook.
I'm sorry, I meant to say.
Yep.
And it was after that notification that you asked your wife about it. She hadn't seen it, correct?
She had just seen it as I was going into the house at
And
about the same time, roughly.
Thank you. And then either one of you reached out to Tammy and called her.
Yes, she did.
And so you at some point talked to Tammy, or did you at least overhear the conversation she was having with your spouse?
Yes.
Which was it?
I didn't directly talk to her. I overheard the conversation.
Okay. Now, just for clarification, your testimony today, yesterday, and at the grand jury is that you don't have any personal knowledge with respect to however that shooting occurred or whatever went down. Fair?
That is correct.
Does this guy's voice
No.
sounds like he's got a mouthful of shit or something? Is it just
When-
me?
You finished talking to Tammy, or your wife did. You decided to make a 911 call.
I don't know.
My wife was still on the phone with Tammy when I made the call.
And you did that, I presume, because you were alarmed at the situation.
Yes.
And at that point, to your knowledge, had Chad ever made a phone call?
Not that I am aware of.
And frankly, at that point, Tammy had not called 911 either, had she?
No.
Judge, objection. There's no foundation to establish that he would have any knowledge of that.
Do you hear it, Queen?
You were also asked questions by Mr. Pryor yesterday about having talked to Deputy Cannon
Correct.
back on October 9th when this attempted shooting happened.
Correct.
You had explained that you went into the roadway and met him and gave him some details.
Correct.
And in fact, I think you denied yesterday that you had ever told Deputy Cannon that you had heard Tammy scream.
That is correct.
Likewise, I think you denied that you went over to the house immediately after the scream and didn't see anything suspicious. Is that correct?
That is correct.
It is, Lynn. It is.
So
I
then
wish
it's your
somebody's
testimony that
agenda
Deputy
would be to
Cannon,
actually find that
if you put
child.
that in his report,
I mean,
has it wrong.
that's
Is that fair?
That is absolutely fair.
So he has inaccurate information.
That is true.
And I think
I
you
don't
tried
know.
to explain that away somewhat yesterday by the fact
no way I can
Judge, I'm
give
going
two
to object to
fucks
the
about some
characterization explaining
YouTuber.
away.
Sustained.
I'm looking for my
you don't
child.
disagree that yesterday on this point, you had explained that when you had met with Deputy Cannon in the roadway, you were quick to give him information because you wanted him to go search.
Correct.
So isn't it possible that whatever you were relaying to Deputy Cannon in that quick interaction, one reason for the discrepancy could be he misunderstood what you were saying.
Possible, but very unlikely.
So you believe he was intentionally inaccurate.
Correct.
Okay. With respect to what you said yesterday about Tammy never having described this paintball gun as anything but a paintball gun, you did testify to that, yes?
Yep.
Isn't it possible that you simply could have been mistaken about Tammy's full description of what happened as you were overhearing and listening to a conversation that she was having with your wife?
Due to the fact that it was on speakerphone, I don't think so.
Well, you said a second ago that still could have been possible that given the nature of the situation, Deputy Cannon could have been confused by your explanation to him, correct? You just said that.
Yes, but I was also very clear in what I explained to him.
But you don't believe that you're beyond having that.
Oh
same
my
kind of
God,
miscommunication that could occur.
No, based off of the
Wow.
fact that both my wife and I had the same understanding from the
Well,
same
I'm not
conversation.
asking about your wife's understanding. I'm asking you, yes or no.
I'm going to go ahead and agree
You
with
certainly
that.
could have
Though.
had the same kind of misunderstanding,
I don't believe so.
but you could have, or you simply,
Judge asked and answered.
Sustained.
Oh, that's the thing. They're not even good at
after you
lying and fibbing and whatever.
gave
They're
that
not even good
information,
at it.
whatever information you gave to Deputy Cannon, did you have any further conversations with him about this?
No.
In fact, you went back afterwards and talked to your wife and talked to your mother-in-law some more about this incident,
When are you referring to?
anytime at all.
Maybe the next day or after that. I don't recall having a specific conversation about it after.
Now, yesterday, I'm going to move on to October 18th. You had testified, and I think you confirmed through your defense counsel that on the 18th of October of 2019, that you had been helping a friend do some work. Is that correct?
Correct.
And in fact, it was because of that work that you felt a need to borrow your mother-in-law's truck. Is that correct?
My in-laws truck. Yes.
Well, in fact, going back to the grand jury testimony back in May 2021, when you were asked about this, do you disagree that in the transcript, you specifically described it as your mother-in-law's truck?
I may have, but it was owned by
Just
both of
yes or
them.
no is all I asked for. So I think you also explained yesterday that on that day when you needed the truck, you went to her to get the keys at work, correct?
Correct.
And so you had indicated that she had the truck at work, correct?
Correct.
So on that day, she'd driven the truck.
Yes.
And that was October 18th.
Yep.
That would have been just under 10 days from the shooting incident, correct?
Yeah.
And in fact, when you returned the keys, you returned those same keys back to Tammy, correct?
Correct.
Now, you also testified yesterday that at some point Chad Daybell gave you that very truck.
Yep.
Do you still have that truck?
Yes.
You still drive it?
Not right now because it has some mechanical issues.
Okay. But you were given the truck back in December of 2019?
Yep.
Right. Did you drive it for some time after it was given to you?
Yes.
Now, you likewise have explained that you have been married to Emma for 7 years, I think.
Almost 7 years.
So roughly 5 years ago, you would have been married to her a couple of years.
Correct.
At that point in time, you had one child.
Correct.
At that point in time, you lived across the street, kitty corner.
Correct.
And then, isn't it true that on June 9th of 2019, of 2020, when Chad was arrested, you and Emma moved into Chad's home?
Correct. Well, not on after. Are you saying after June 9th? Sorry.
Sir.
Okay. Yes. Not on June 9th, but after. Yes.
Yes. Okay. You know, if I might have permission to publish states 77G at this time on the Emma.
You may.
Chevy, who else? What makes you think that he's toast? I mean, I think he is too. Did something
So going back. to
major
receiving that
happen
truck,
today?
You were given that truck by Chad. Yesterday you testified in 2018, but I think you later clarified that was 2019. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And that was December of 2019?
Correct.
Did you explain the occasion as to why Chad gave you the truck in December of 2019?
Sorry, K9.
Why did he give you the truck in 2019?
Because we only had one working vehicle at the time.
And so on June 9th of 2020, it was after that, shortly after that, that you moved into Chad's home.
Correct.
That's when he got arrested, correct?
Correct.
And that's the day they found Tylee and JJ on that property, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I want to call your attention to this exhibit. I want to invite you to go down and look at the entry. Let's see. The fifth entry that's dated June 9th. Will you look at that, please?
Yep.
And what is that reflecting?
Deposit into my checking account.
For what amount?
$8,000.
And who made that deposit?
I am not exactly sure.
You're not aware if that would have came from Chad Daybell?
I know we got $8,000, but I wasn't sure. It just said $8,000. So
So you don't disagree that this was $8,000 that came from Chad Daybell?
No.
Okay. No, you don't disagree?
no, I don't disagree.
Okay. And that occurred.
I agree,
I'm
Len.
done, Your Honor. That occurred again the day he was arrested.
Yep.
So to be clear, Chad Daybell in December 2019 gave you his truck.
Yep.
Okay. And then later in June 9th, when he's arrested, he deposited $8,000 into your account.
Yep.
Correct. And then he had you guys move into his house, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And were you aware that he also gave Emma $9,000 in cash that day?
Yes.
So he gave you roughly $17,000 in cash,
Right.
correct? Had given you one of his vehicles, correct?
Yep.
And gave you a place to live, correct?
Yep.
You were asked questions, and we've already alluded to this, that at some point you had found out that JJ and Tylee had been buried in Chad's backyard.
Correct.
Right. You had described, in fact, that you believe JJ had been buried by the pond and Tylee by the fire pit, correct?
Yep.
Now, have you ever met JJ and Tylee's mother?
Lori Valla?
Yes.
No. I mean, yes, sorry. I went back to the thing you were talking about them in particular. Yes, I've met Lori.
And isn't it true that the first day you met Lori was the day after Tammy's funeral at Chad's house?
Yes,
So she came to Chad's house and that's where the family met her.
yes.
And was it the immediate day after her funeral?
I don't recall the exact day. If it was the immediate day after or shortly after, yes.
Yeah, and you had testified to that effectively. That
Yep.
was the day after. Have you ever heard the name Alex Cox?
Yes.
And who is Alex Cox?
Lori Vallow's brother.
Had you ever met Alex Cox?
No,
Had you at any point in time ever seen Alex Cox on Chad's property?
no.
You were asked some questions yesterday about the layout of Chad's property. Do you recall specifically getting a question about the long driveway?
Yes,
And you were asked a question about whether or not someone could access the long driveway to a place behind the property where they then could not be seen from the roadway. Do you recall that?
yes,
And you acknowledged that there is a place back there where someone could access through the driveway, through a gate, and then not be visible from the roadway to the public while they're back there.
Yep.
So then you wouldn't disagree. And that area was in the general area that accessed both the pond and the fire pit.
Judge,
correct?
I'm going to object at this point. Counsel's testifying.
Sustained.
Didn't you testify yesterday that that access point was in the general area of the pond and the fire pit?
yes,
So then you wouldn't disagree that whomever, whether it was Chad or somebody else,
Judge, objection calls for speculation.
On that second part of the question, I will sustain that.
you wouldn't disagree that anybody who buried those children could have used that driveway and have done so outside the visibility of the roadway, correct?
from the Salem Highway, no, they would not have been able to.
Now, you testified also that at some point in time, Detective Hermosillo had been seen driving by this property,
Yep, before and after Chad's arrest.
and that was something that you had observed personally?
Yep.
And at that point, had you met Detective Hermosillo?
Yes,
And that's how you were able to identify him?
and I've also seen him on Facebook.
Did you see Detective Hermosillo the day that Tylee and JJ were found?
I can't recall for sure on that day.
You don't have any reason to disagree that Detective Hermosillo was one of the lead investigators in this case?
No, I have no reason to disagree on that.
No reason to disagree that in fact he was there the day that the bodies were found?
I would assume so.
So you wouldn't disagree that for law enforcement to drive back and forth by this property, that they may have suspected the bodies were, and in fact found the bodies there. That wouldn't necessarily be unusual, would it?
Perhaps no. However, this was even after the bodies were taken out, that he would slowly drive by the property.
And to that point, so you would disagree that a detective who discovers bodies on a property, arrests somebody from the property, might have a surveillance or investigative interest in continuing to drive by the property to identify if someone else was coming back to the property after the bodies had been removed. You don't disagree with that, do you?
I don't see the reason for it.
You're not a law enforcement officer, are you?
Absolutely not. I would rather choose any other profession.
Okay.
Choose any other profession.
But you don't disagree that a law enforcement officer who found bodies on a property might want to continue to observe that property to see if anything else suspicious occurred there at the property.
I don't see the reason for him returning.
Do you think finding bodies on a property is a big deal?
Judge, I'm going to object. It's been asked and answered at least a couple of times.
Sustained.
When Detective Hermosillo was driving by the property, did he ever make contact with you?
No.
Were you aware that some kind of memorial had been placed
Wow,
on the
what am
property
I hearing
relative to
here?
Tylee and JJ?
Yes, but the slow driving by wasn't just on 200 North, it was also on Salem Highway.
You don't disagree that for a law enforcement officer to find two children buried on a property would be a traumatic event, do you?
I don't disagree.
Thankfully.
However, I don't understand why during working hours, we would need to return and visit the memorial.
So that's not understandable to you how a law enforcement officer might have a traumatic experience and go back and visit the property.
I didn't say that.
So then you agree it could be.
Yes.
Your Honor, I have no further
People are
questions.
fucked up, man.
Redirect, Mr. Pryor.
And Judge, I'll need 77G.
Very well. I don't know if it's still up there. If it is, Mr. Wixom, just please leave it.
All right, did I return that exhibit back to Marshall? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Judge, may I publish 77G?
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
I'd like you to count down the fourth entry on 77G.
Okay,
It says the name Seth C. Daybell. Do you see that?
I do.
Can you tell me who Seth C. Daybell is?
Seth is the son of Chad and Tammy Daybell, also my wife's brother.
And do you see how much money Seth got?
$8,000.
Okay. Are you aware of any of the other children of Chad Daybell getting money as well?
I believe all of them did.
Do you know what the amounts were?
$8,000.
Judge, I have nothing else. Thank you.
That'll conclude the testimony then of Mr. Murray. Is he going to remain under your subpoena, Mr. Pryor?
He is not, Judge.
Has the state got him under subpoena? Okay, you are released then from any subpoena. Thank you for coming and testifying, Mr. Murray. You can be excused.
And Your Honor, before we bring in the next witness, may we have a sidebar?
Yes.
Hey, Mama. What's going on? I don't like that guy. Oh, that would be the last profession. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be a good one anyway. Got shit, your mouth full of some kind of shit. I don't know what. I don't like that kid. These kids are not, you know what? They're really pissing me off. They actually are. I'm sorry to say that. I didn't want to have to say that about it.
All right, Mr. Pryor, you can call your next witness.
They're just honest,
Yes.
and they're literally acting like dead
Dr.
children
Kathy
are not a
Raven?
problem to them. What the hell? And I don't understand that attorney yesterday. What the hell was that about? The next day, and they're all good with that.
And Judge, while we're waiting, my understanding is there's a stipulation in the parties on Defense Exhibit 135. It
Like,
encompasses the forensic report of Dr. Kathy Raven. I'd move for admission of 135.
I don't like the way these kids are
Um,
at all.
I can take that up. I'll prefer.
But you know
to get
what?
that admitted.
In that
once we have
body
the witness
cam,
on the stand.
She never ever says, Dad, why are they people and why are those kids in the yard?
That's-
She never ever says anything about what has happened.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but
I'm
the truth,
sorry.
so
You know
help
what? The
God.
mortgage and shit can wait. What the fuck? There are dead people here. What are you talking about? That Mario's good. Yeah, I don't. My God.
Okay, thank you.
She's
Appreciate that.
fucking weird anyway. She said somebody got in her body and her dad got him out and her good God. Fucking weirdos.
May I, Judge?
Give us just a sec here, Mr. Pryor.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
I don't know. I guess we're gonna find out right now. I don't know, Presence.
All right, Mr. Pryor, before we go on inquiry, I believe this is an expert witness, so likewise, or
Have a
likely
great
not
day,
subject to the
Legs. Love you.
exclusionary rules that your understanding.
It is, Judge.
You may inquire then. Thank you, Mr. Pryor.
Good morning, Dr. Raven. Would you please state your name, spell your last name for the record?
Catherine Raven, Raven.
And can you tell me what your occupation is?
I am a forensic pathologist.
Okay, explain to me what a forensic pathologist is.
I'm a medical doctor. I actually did 4 years of medical school. Then I did become a pathologist, which is the doctor that's at the hospital, does all the lab tests, biopsies. But I specialized even further in that. I went into forensic pathology, and that's applying the knowledge of medicine as a doctor. And really the main focus is to determine cause of death in individuals,
Okay. And in what state do you practice?
primarily in California.
And do you have any cities or municipalities that you associate with that you do work primarily for?
Yes, I'm a contract forensic pathologist in California, and I primarily work in Alameda County, which is the Bay Area, and also in Butte County.
Okay. And how long have you been a licensed forensic pathologist?
25, 26 years now.
And you're presently, obviously you testified, you're presently engaged in that profession at the present time. Is that right?
That's correct.
And where did you receive your training in pathology?
In pathology, I received it in Colorado, Denver, Colorado, at the University of Colorado Health Science Center. It was 4 years of general pathology.
And what sort of certifications or what sort of certifications are required in order to be a pathologist?
Well, to be a general pathologist, you can either be an anatomical pathologist or a clinical pathologist. So after you do a residency, you would take a board examination. I'm certified in both anatomical and clinical pathology. I also did a year of neuropathology on the studying of the nervous system, injury to the nervous system. And then I did a year of forensic pathology, which is where I do subspecialize and just did forensic pathology. I'm also board certified in forensic pathology.
And you jumped the gun on me. And when we say that there is a, is that the American Board of Pathology?
Yes.
And what is the American Board of Pathology?
It's just a board, it's national. Every pathologist who's board certified takes the exact same test, regardless of where they did their training at. To be a board certified pathologist, you'd have to pass the examination.
And I assume then that you passed that examination.
Yes.
Are you, and do you have any publications or any theses that you've written as part of your 25-year career?
As a fellow, when I was in training, I had a paper published, but other than that, I've been a practicing pathologist.
So you do the hands-on work of a pathologist.
Correct.
You're not a academic person.
That's correct.
Okay. Have you testified previously in any proceedings?
Yes.
Have you previously been approved as an expert in the field of forensic pathology?
Yes.
And can you give me approximately how many times you've done that?
Probably close to 300 or more.
Okay. Now, I skipped one question. Is part of your certification, is that a national certification?
Yes. It's a board certification, so it's a national test. Yes.
Okay. So in other words, you can apply your principles of forensic pathology anywhere in the United States. It's a scientific process. Would that be fair?
Yes. As far as the pathology itself, you have to be licensed in a particular state to practice in that state. But as a pathologist, I could go anywhere and be a pathologist.
Now, in this particular case, you were retained by my office to conduct an investigation regarding this case. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the area of investigation you were to conduct was in what area of this case?
If I'm understanding the question, I was asked to review the autopsy report and other pertinent materials.
Okay. And when you did review the autopsy report?
Correct.
And do you have a recollection of all of the other documents that you reviewed?
A summary of them, but I don't know them specifically without my report.
Would it help you if I were to provide you your report?
Yes.
And Judge, at this time, I'm going to move for admission of defense exhibit, I think it's 135.
As a statement, I'm going to review that.
Yes, Your Honor, no objection.
Very well. Defense exhibit 135 is admitted. Can you, and that's the
Thank you.
report, Mr. Pryor, paper copy?
That is a paper copy, and I have a paper copy as well. And Dr. Raven, if you would be so kind as to just review, we can't have you read off, unfortunately, what you line by line. So if you're able to review and give us a synopsis of what you looked at after you've reviewed it, set it down, and then we'll proceed from that.
I could give a general.
Okay, go ahead. What documents did you review as part of this?
Dr. Christensen's autopsy report from Utah. Along with that were autopsy photographs. There are also some scene photographs that I reviewed. The death certificate, the original death certificate I reviewed. There was a couple reports from the coroner. I don't know if they were the official reports, but some typewritten reports from the coroner and some law enforcement investigation reports also.
Okay. And then in addition, in a previous matter, and I don't want to say what matter, in a previous matter, you looked and reviewed previous testimony as well,
I
correct?
reviewed previous testimony from Dr. Christensen, correct?
Okay. And you also looked at some of Dr. Marsden's remarks as well?
I don't recall her remarks as much as Dr. Christensen's.
Okay. Now, I want to go in the area of conclusions that are drawn as the result of an autopsy. And I understand there are approximately 5 categories that you can arrive at as a result of conclusions that you make when you're conducting an autopsy. Is that fair?
I'm not sure I'm following the question.
Okay. In this particular case, you arrived at a conclusion in terms of your review of the case. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that conclusion, there are other conclusions that someone in your field as a forensic pathologist can arrive at. Is that fair?
Yes, that's fair.
And what would some of those other conclusions be?
In this particular case.
Well, in any
either-
case, in general,
You mean as far as manner of death?
in terms of manner.
In manner, so manner of death, there's usually 5 categories of manner. The cause of death is the medical disease process or injury that actually caused the death, but the manner of death is how we categorize the death, really just for death certificate purposes. So either homicide, suicide, accident, undetermined, or natural death. So any one of those 5 for manner of death can be would fit a certain case. If we don't know or it doesn't fit particularly in one or the other, then we would call it undetermined.
Now, in reviewing this case, you made some summary of some of the materials in terms of what you discovered. Can you talk briefly about the summary of some of the things you arrived at as part of your review?
Well, specifically, I paid most attention to the autopsy report. It was an autopsy after embalming and a disinterment. It was a thorough autopsy. I reviewed that. There was a few injuries, some bruising, which are very nonspecific to the arms.
And if we could stop there in a
Yeah.
minute and just talk briefly about what is nonspecific bruising?
So nonspecific bruising just means there's not a pattern to it, and anything can cause a bruise or a contusion. Is the same thing. It's caused by blunt force. So any blunt object, blunt surface, anything, you bump your arm, you fall, someone hits you, anything blunt, to compare it to a knife, which should be sharp. So anything blunt can cause a bruise. So nonspecific just means we don't know what caused them. Any number of things could cause them as long as it had a blunt surface.
Okay. And at this point, when you say nonspecific, there's no way to determine what was the cause of action that resulted in the bruises on the right arm and then the one bruise on the left arm. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then you continued with your summary. I'll allow you to continue on that with what you also summarized.
Then and there was no anatomical cause of death found at the autopsy.
Okay. And I'm gonna keep interrupting you as we go through that because this is important. When you say there was no anatomical cause of death, what does that mean?
When we do an autopsy, we look at every organ in the body. We pull it out, we dissect it, and we're looking for anything that may have caused death. So we do a dissection of the heart, looking for heart disease. We look at the lungs, the liver, every organ, the brain, looking for natural death, anything that may have caused death. In this particular case, nothing was found.
Okay. And then further, what other findings did you make?
And then the next step we would do is what's called toxicology, looking at the blood. Sometimes we look at the urine and also the fluid in the eye called the vitreous. We analyze those and we look for any kind of drugs, toxins, or any abnormalities with those.
And would you agree that the toxicology report, at least according to your report that you provided, indicates that it was an extensive toxicology report?
Yes, it was a very extensive toxicology examination. They did extensive testing.
Okay. And at this point, there is always the possibility something could have been missed in the toxicology, correct?
Correct. So we just can't send a blood sample to the lab and say, look for anything and everything. We have to tell them what to look for. So most of the things we have are in a panel. We're really looking for, again, illicit drugs. If you're looking for things specifically like poisons and other things, you have to tell them which one to look for. They just don't they can't just randomly look for it. But they did extensive testing looking for several poisons and drugs.
So at this point, aside from the extensive testing, unless it was something unusual, the likelihood is that this wasn't the result of any kind of a poisoning, correct?
More than likely. It would be funny they couldn't detect anything. And there's always things we're not going to be able to detect, and the embalming does interfere with some testing, but nothing that they tested for was positive, so it would be unlikely.
Okay. And then additional findings that you made?
I have to think for a moment. Sorry.
Can you refresh your report with your?
No, I just didn't know where I left off. I'm sorry. When you asked that last question. So we had the bruises that we talked about, and really that was it. There's no other anatomical cause of death from an anatomy perspective from with the organs, and then there was no toxicological cause of death either.
Okay. Now you indicated that the body was exhumed and they performed an autopsy, and then the same day the body was reburied. Is that correct?
I don't know when it was reburied. I'm sorry.
Okay. But the autopsy was done as the same day that it was exhumed, correct?
Again, I'm not sure. I know the autopsy was done on the 19th, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure when it was exhumed, to be honest.
So the date of the autopsy was October 19th of 2019.
I believe it was December. I'm sorry, it was December 11th. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you're right
Yeah,
too.
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
Goodness,
too,
where'd I
yeah.
get that from? I know where I got that from.
Right. The date of the incident was
Date of her
October 19th,
date
but
of her passing was, and I apologize for that.
well, I misspoke too. So it was December 11th, 2019.
Okay. Now, the autopsy was done on December 11th of 2019. Do you recall when the date of the signature that was placed on the autopsy was placed on that document?
I believe it was in January. I can't remember the specific date of 2021.
So am I understanding that it would have been over a year plus between the time of the autopsy and the signing of the report?
It would probably be close to over 2 years.
Okay. And is there some explanation that you can logical explanation as to why there is such a gap in time between when the autopsy was done and when these folks decided to sign the document with their findings?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Do you have any idea how it might
No.
be such a length of time?
Sometimes the toxicology testing takes a while, a few months. So if you get it back and it's negative, and you might go back and say, let's try this again, let's try this, let's look for this, and let's look for that. That's the only thing I can think of why it would take so long to sign out a report.
Okay, and that could be the explanation, is that it took them a significant amount of time to try to find something in the toxicology that would support their theory?
Or other things, yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, you came to a conclusion in your report in regards to this case, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was that conclusion?
My conclusion was that since there was no anatomical or toxicological cause of death, no injury to account for death, that it would be best classified as a cause of death as undetermined.
Okay, now when you say no physical cause of death, you did review Dr. Christensen's testimony, is that correct?
Correct.
And there was some mention, at least during this trial, of the bruising on the arms. Is it your conclusion that those bruises could not be taken in consideration to support a different conclusion of asphyxia?
Well, again, the bruising on the arm is nonspecific. They're just bruises on the arm. They don't indicate a cause of death. They don't cause death in and of themselves. They're just nonspecific bruises on the arm. So I don't believe it supports a diagnosis of anything other than there was some blunt injury to the arms.
Okay. And in regards to the suggestion that if someone were to sit on the chest of someone to try to cause asphyxiation, did you examine or look into that possibility?
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying misstates the prior testimony.
Sustained.
Would it be a possible basis of asphyxiation by suffocation by sitting on someone's chest?
It's a difficult question. It's very difficult to sit on somebody's chest and kill them. There are reports. There was one scientific study done back in 2017. I believe it was out of San Diego, where they actually tried to figure out how much weight it would take, how much pressure it would take to do that. Usually when somebody does asphyxiate, it's usually several people on top of somebody, or in a crowd. You've heard of the stadiums where the crowds get stuck and everyone gets pushed together. That's several bodies. It's not just one. This particular study said it would be probably 450 plus pounds that would have to require to sit. So I think it'd be extraordinarily hard to sit on somebody, a healthy young person anyways. Maybe an old febrile person you might be able to, but I think it'd be very, very difficult and unlikely.
Okay. And then the possibility of asphyxiating them by just holding their arms, that's not going to do it either, correct? Just hold.
Objection, Your Honor. This misstates prior testimony. Move to strike.
Overruled.
Would just holding somebody's arms and leaving bruises, is there a way to asphyxiate someone that way?
No, so asphyxia just really means that there's no oxygen getting to the blood to supply our organs. So several things can cause asphyxia. Asphyxia is just a mechanism. It's not really even a cause of death. It's always due to something. So it might be asphyxia due to drowning, where we're not getting oxygen, asphyxia due to choking, asphyxia due to strangulation. So asphyxia in itself just means that they're not getting oxygen. That's a very nonspecific term.
Did you see any indication that there was any damage to the neck or the throat?
No, there was no obvious damage to the neck. There was some damage caused by the embalming process, may have obscured, at least on the right side of the neck, but there was no obvious hemorrhage or other injury.
Now, in reading Dr. Christensen, Dr. Marsden's reports, they established that this was homicide by asphyxia. And can you explain why you differ with that diagnosis?
Well, it's just that the person we have no cause of death for. We don't know what the cause of death is. So that would be undetermined. It's an undetermined death. It happens. Probably 5 to 10% of autopsies may be undetermined. Some reports say lower. So it's not, if we just don't find anything, there's several things can cause death without leaving any signs or indications. So since we don't know exactly what happened, we call it undetermined, and that's what I would have called this.
And some of the other possibilities other than asphyxia would include what?
As far as not leaving any signs or not having anything, a seizure can cause a death without leaving any signs. A cardiac arrhythmia can also cause death without leaving any signs. Asphyxia is one thing that can cause it. Drugs that weren't detected.
Okay. Now, in this particular case, you made note of some of the comments that were made about Tammy's past medical issues, some shaking and some lightheadedness, those sort of things. Is that something that would be consistent with a seizure diagnosis?
Well, it might be consistent with the seizure, the shaking fits that were described. Since there was no diagnosis, that's hard to say. The only way to diagnose it would have been to go to a neurologist and have it diagnosed. But certainly that's the history that we get. Some people see shaking. Sometimes it's violent. Sometimes it's even just violent. I'm sorry. Sometimes people just stare off into space. There's different kinds of seizures. So a shaking fit would be described by a layperson.
And you did touch on that, and that was the next area, is that seizures don't necessarily mean that there's episodes of violent shaking. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We've seen some of the politicians in the past several years who have just been on live camera and they just black out and there's nothing there. Those are what you.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel's testifying. Move to strike.
Sustained. And I'll strike that last question.
So a seizure, can you describe a little bit about the types of seizures for me?
Again, you can have different types of seizures. You have larger seizures what we think of larger seizures, where you think of that most people think of the shaking, the convulsing. It could be very traumatic. Actually, you can get a lot of injuries from those, serious injuries also. Or you can have smaller ones, lighter ones where sometimes people just might stare off into space. Sometimes they do like just
I'm curious,
type of
what is
motions
it
with their
they
hands over their
think?
lips, smacking. Very, very small, can be very subtle.
This woman is
It really
doing.
depends where the focus is at and what type of seizure it is.
But whether it's a small seizure or
said
a
there was
large
nothing
seizure,
wrong with
ultimately at some point that seizure could become fatal. Is that correct?
Yes, seizures are a cause of death. We see them as a cause of death or attribute it to death, not infrequently.
Okay, you also mentioned arrhythmia. Talk to me a little bit about arrhythmia.
I have a lot
And
of.
these are the things that people die from that we can't see anything. An arrhythmia is an electrical disturbance, just like a seizure is an electrical disturbance in the brain. An arrhythmia is an electrical
Stop by and
disturbance in
see
the
the
heart.
new sofas.
So same thing, we may not see anything at the time of death or at the autopsy, excuse me.
Okay. And at some point with arrhythmia, with arrhythmia, there's not necessarily any signs of damage with the heart. Is that correct?
Correct. Frequently you'll see cardiac abnormalities. You might see a structural defect in the heart, some coronary artery disease. You might see something. And then if it's a sudden death, it's a presumed cardiac arrhythmia. You don't have to have a structural defect, but we do usually see that.
Okay. Now, in this particular case,
No, this woman is not
Dr.
helping. I
Christensen
don't
came to
think.
the conclusion that this was homicide, and your conclusion is different, obviously. Is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as the explanations of the possibilities of what potentially could have caused the death,
The
without
only person that said she had a
any
shaking
physical
fit
signs
is
of any
Chad.
structural or physical damage, what would those include?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
The causes of death that could have resulted from this. They could include a seizure. Is that correct?
Yes.
They could include arrhythmia. Is that correct?
Yes.
They could include asphyxia. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there really any certainty to know what was the cause of death of Tammy Daybell?
No, because all those plus again, if there's some toxicology that we didn't pick up on, can cause death without leaving any signs.
Now, is it standard practice when there's no signs and there's no indication of what could have caused the death to take a jump to asphyxia? Is that what would be the common practice?
In my opinion, no. The way I practice and the way I've always taught people to practice in the institutions I've been associated with, again, we would call them undetermined. It's not, we do get cases where we don't find anything. We don't jump to conclusions or speculate. We just say these are things that might have happened. We don't know, so we're better left calling it undetermined. Other people might practice differently.
Okay. So it's a matter of how people practice. Would that be fair?
I think that's fair.
But in your opinion, there's no conclusion that could be drawn in this particular case.
No, there was no scientific evidence of a cause of death.
I want to talk to you about a little bit of a term in terms of your profession. The term is called confirmatory bias. Are you familiar with that term?
Vaguely familiar. The confirmation bias is what I think I know it as.
Okay, and explain to me what that means.
It's kind of a term that's been introduced over the last couple of years. Actually, it's probably been around longer than that, but in forensic pathology, just the last few years. Anyways, it just talks about, if you have something in your mind or you're told a scenario in a case, if you're not going to just see that and make and lean your diagnoses towards that. For example, if there was a baby and somebody told you, someone saw the parents squeezing the baby, you might lean towards asphyxia because you're being biased by that history. So it's kind of a bias. It's not just looking at the scientific evidence in front of you, but you're being biased by other things.
So if someone were to say that they put the procedural history and some of the events that occurred around the time of Tammy Daybell's death, that would be an example of confirmatory bias. Would that be fair?
Possibly. Depends what was told them. Possibly,
Okay.
yes.
Well, you talked about the fact that someone saw the baby squeezed or shaken, and then the investigation is turned that way and leaned that way, correct?
Yes, that's what it's most commonly seen in is like a shaken baby case.
So if someone has provided some information, regardless of whether it's relevant to the case, we should still be going back to the the scientific evidence and base it on science and facts. Would that be fair?
Yes, as a physician, pathologist, our diagnosis should be based off science and what we can actually see, rather than speculating. Again, that's how I've always practiced and that's how I teach.
And would it be fair to say that most of you folks in the field of forensic pathology would approach it the way you're approaching it?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
I have nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
What the fuck? Okay, you do have to go, especially because
So
she
rate that
said
exam during the cross, is that correct?
that it would
Yes,
be
All right.
undetermined.
Thank you.
So because every fucking buddy who's dark turns up dead, that should not be considered? Really? This is a fucking whack job. Right,
Good morning,
and
Dr.
crowd
Reagan.
surfing.
You indicated that you are a forensic pathologist. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you work as a medical examiner?
I do not now.
So in your current capacity, you're not in a medical examiner, your office? In your current capacity, you're not working in a medical examiner's office?
No, I'm a forensic pathologist, an independent contractor at this point in my career.
People want her to say.
Investigators.
So you're a court assistant. In the system you're in, who determines they're not an autopsy?
It really varies. Most of the time, that it really depends. In a medical examiner, it's different because the pathologist is the medical examiner. The coroner system, it's a little different. It's the coroner who will bring the case in. Usually it's left up to the pathologist in my jurisdictions to determine the level of the examination.
Or is it up to man tits husband that is going to get money and be free to be with the love of his life? Maybe it should be up to that person.
And we've talked a little bit about your report. And do you still have that with you?
I do not.
May the witness be handed that last exhibit?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I believe you indicated that you reviewed documents that you reviewed the autopsy report and documents that were specific. See if I can find the phrasing here. That you reviewed the autopsy report and other pertinent information. Do you recall that?
Yes, I listed a few things, yes.
And you, in your report, there's a section, materials reviewed. Do you see that section?
Yes.
Is that an exhaustive list of the documents you reviewed in this case?
The initial, I believe I've had a few documents sent to me since this report, but I believe that would have been it, yes.
And do you mind reading those off for the record, what you reviewed?
Absolutely. I thought I wasn't supposed to, but I can.
Yes, it's an exhibit that's been admitted, so I think that's appropriate.
And so I could just verbatim.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind doing that.
You have to excuse my voice, I'm sorry. The following materials were reviewed regarding the death of T. Daybell. Autopsy report authored by Dr. Lily Marston, co-signed by Dr. Eric Christensen. Autopsy photographs, toxicology reports from NMS and
Right.
Utah Department of
That's what I'm
Health.
saying. She's
A
not.
brief investigative report from the Office of the Medical Examiner, State of Utah. A typed
She
coroner
damn sure
report,
didn't
not
say that
signed,
she
dated
died of
on
natural
letterhead,
causes.
unknown time, authored or source. The Fremont County Coroner informal record of death report. A report by Deputy Greenhaw, excuse the name, Detective Fabinich and Lieutenant Powell. Scene photographs, unknown source. Report by B. Mattingly. Fremont County incident report from incident from 10/09/2019. Copy of the death certificate for T. Daybell, signed at 10/19/2019 by Brenda Dye, and the transcript of
Oh,
Dr.
for
Christensen's
sure.
testimony, Brenda Dye interview, and Deputy
Look at that
Coroner
crazy
Kim
bullshit
Wilmore's
going on
interview.
in the
And you said maybe since then
Johnny
you've
Depp
reviewed a few
trial.
more documents.
My God.
Yes, I
crazy
believe so, but that was
Fucking experts.
3 years ago, so I believe a few things have come through. When I started first reviewing them, a few things have come through since.
And do you recall what those things are that
Yes,
have come through?
yes. My God. That's
I
right.
believe it was just,
Yeah, Louis.
I
That
believe it
was
was different
like,
reports of what the coroner reported on. I don't recall specifically, I'm sorry.
yeah, that was crazy.
As part of your, and Let me back up. And these were documents that were provided to you by defense
They're
counsel.
doctors that need doctors.
So when you say you reviewed the autopsy report and other pertinent information, it was the defense that provided you that other pertinent information. Is that correct?
The defense provided me everything, yes.
Did you review a report from Lieutenant Powell regarding requesting Walmart records?
That does not sound familiar, but I don't remember.
Did you review a report of an interview with Emily Daybell?
I don't recall.
Did you review a report of an interview with Paul Daybell?
I don't recall.
Did you review a report of an interview with Jana Penrose, a relative of Tammy Daybell?
I don't believe so.
Did you review a report of an interview with David Warwick?
I don't believe so. The name's not familiar.
And you said you reviewed some of the coroner reports. Would that be Brenda Dye? Does that name sound familiar?
It does sound familiar. Like I said, one was not signed. I didn't know who wrote it, but that name does sound familiar.
Did you review an interview that was conducted with Brenda Dye, a report of that?
I believe so, yes.
Did you review a report of an interview conducted with the deputy coroner, Cammie Wilmore?
Yes, I believe so.
Did you review a report that contains some records from a Lolly Time iCloud account?
No.
Did you review a report from Benjamin Dean and ask the FBI? Review the Seasons medical records?
No.
Did you review the Teton medical records?
No.
And I think you indicated you did review some reports of the October 9th incident,
Yes,
and that would have been regarding an attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell. Does that sound familiar?
yes.
Did you review a report of an interview with Matthew and Regan Price?
I don't believe so.
Did you review a report of an interview with Haley Palmer?
No.
Did you review any reports of interviews with Angela Yancey?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Ronald and Phyllis Douglas?
Judge, I'm going to object at this point to the relevance of how that would have an impact on the autopsy. She's going to go down a list of every report that any witness in this case
Mr. Pryor,
discussed.
no speaking objections, please, but I'll sustain the objection at this point unless there's some specific relevance to the autopsy.
And if I may respond,
Go ahead.
I'm reading off a list that was reviewed by the Utah medical examiners in making their findings. I
Okay.
think it is relevant.
All right. If that's the foundation for that, I'll allow that to continue. Thank you, Ms. Blake.
Did you review a report of an interview with Ronald and Phyllis Douglas?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Lisa Jensen?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Janet Davis?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Melissa Coles?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Mary Fran Jepson?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Faye Harris?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with John Ox?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Margaret Brown?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Stephanie Peralta?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Angela Johansson?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Shanna Miller?
I don't recall.
Did you review a report of an interview with Barbara Blair?
I don't believe so.
Did you review a report of an interview with Hannah Munoz?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Britt and Crystal
Seriously?
Briggs?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Micaiah Baglin?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Cara and Sandra Briggs?
No.
Did you review a report of an interview with Emma Moss?
No.
Did you review a statement given by Greg Stoddard?
I don't recall.
Did you review 4 to 5 reports regarding insurance surrounding Tammy Daybell life insurance?
No.
Did you review a report indicating Tammy never used any sick days?
No.
Did you review
Shut up.
her Walmart prescription records?
No.
Did you review a report regarding Tammy's cell phone?
No.
Did you review a report? Actually, I'll back up there. So as part of your review of the findings in the autopsy, you did not review the list that was just read off.
No.
Were those documents provided to you?
No.
Some of those that were indicated was the medical records. Did you specifically review the Seasons medical records associated with Tammy Daybell
As answered before, I did not.
and the Teton medical records?
Judge asked an answer.
Sustain.
Council asked you about reviewing or looking at medical records referencing shaking fits and seizure activity. Did you ever look at any medical records referencing shaking fits?
I don't recall the first question, and I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. I'm sorry. Can you rephrase that?
Did you ever review any medical records associated with Tammy Daybell that referenced shaking fits?
No, I did not.
Did you ever review any medical records associated with Tammy Daybell that referenced seizure activity?
I did not.
Where did that information come from?
That information came from the coroner's report.
And the coroner's report was information obtained from Chad Daybell?
I believe that's where she got it from, but you'd have to ask her. I'm not sure where they got their medical
course.
information from.
That's where it came from.
And
And you
you
know
talked
what?
about a possible cause of death being cardiac arrhythmia.
It's one possible cause when there's no anatomical findings, yes.
And you said generally with that, you would find a structural defect.
And commonly we do, yes.
In the review of the autopsy report, was there any structural defect with Tammy Daybell's heart?
Not that they found, no.
Nope. Mm-mm. See, she's also not saying that she died of natural causes. I have no idea what the fuck they got this
You
one.
were
out
also
there.
asked about the bruising on Tammy Daybell, and I think you said you defined it as unspecified or unspecific bruising.
Non-specific. Dr. Christensen testified to that too. They're non-specific bruises.
And counsel proceeded to ask you about putting pressure on someone's chest. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you indicated you would expect it to be 2 people, at least if that was done?
Me too.
No, it
I
just
love
takes
them.
significant weight.
I love John and Lauren
to,
both.
to do that. And it's hard to sit on somebody to cause death. And the scientific literature that's out
I
there
love
says probably
they are
450
the
pounds or more.
women.
Actually, it was closer to 600, but they went down to 450.
But you would agree that it could be more than one person involved if
Possibly.
that were to happen?
If you have more than one person on you, yes.
And what are the other ways that asphyxiation can be caused or occur?
Again, asphyxia is just the process of the body not getting oxygen. So many things. We said drowning already. You're underwater, you're not getting oxygen. Choking, you have airway obstruction, suffocation. You can be in a position like a car. People have asphyxia where they're underneath a car and the car collapses on them. Where the pressure on the chest. Asphyxia could be from chemical asphyxia, such things like cyanide can cause an asphyxial death because it blocks the oxygen getting to the tissues. So the list can go on and on.
And one way to cause asphyxiation could be to place a pillow over someone's head.
You could suffocate them by putting an
tap
object or something in front of their face, if that's what you mean.
Yes.
Yes.
One way to suffocate someone could be to put a plastic bag over their head. Would that cause asphyxiation?
Yes.
And as a forensic pathologist, would you agree that you approach an autopsy more like a doctor as you're looking for symptoms, causes?
Well, we are a doctor, so we do look for scientific evidence of a diagnosis. Again, we don't speculate on diagnoses. We say this is a gunshot wound because we have evidence of the gunshot wound. We have hemorrhage, we have a knife wound. So again, yes, we use scientific evidence to base our diagnoses off of like any doctor does.
And the difference being in an autopsy, your patient can't provide that information, correct?
That's correct.
So you would have to get it from collateral sources?
Pertinent to the cause of death, yes.
If I may have just a moment.
You may.
I have no further questions.
All right. Redirect Mr. Pryor.
Dr. Raven, Ms. Blake went over a litany of other reports and statements from other witnesses, a variety of other documents. When a forensic pathologist is examining a variety of other documents that are not related to the medical reports and the scientific evidence, is that an example of confirmation bias?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Is that an example of confirmation bias when you take into account all of these other reports, documents, statements of people who are not present at the murder?
It is a confirmation of bias
So,
on your
And
side
It's a difficult
by
question.
not
We don't
providing any of that.
honestly look at all those reports on any case really I've ever heard of such an exhaustive list because we don't have those reports available to us. Maybe over a 2-year period, we would have them. I don't know. But we don't. Again, we always base it off scientific evidence, what we have in front of us, the autopsy. Either we have a cause of death or we don't. We try not to speculate. We try not to guess on what a cause of death is. There's lots of implications to that for anybody. So generally speaking, it is bias. If that's what you're using to determine a cause of death for, that's bias. Either you have a cause of death or you don't. And then again, if we had a case like this where we don't have a cause of death, we do just call it undetermined. And we put that list, what we've talked about today, these are potential findings, but we don't commit to one of those.
Okay. And to commit to some other information like a plastic bag
Sorry to hear that,
or sitting
Chad.
on someone's chest or putting a pillow over somebody's face.
Of course.
Would you agree that that would be conjecture,
Agree.
speculation, and hunch?
Without any evidence?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes,
Chad. I
believe
love
so.
you.
And at the present time, would it be your testimony that the logical conclusion in your mind that should be drawn from this is that the cause of death of Tammy Daybell would be undetermined?
Yes, in my opinion, it should be undetermined.
Judge, I have no other questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
And Judge, I would ask for a recross.
I don't think any door was open there, Ms. Blake, so I'll deny the request. All right, that'll conclude the testimony then of Dr. Raven. Is she going to remain under subpoena?
She is not judge. She's excused. And thank you, Dr. Raven.
You're welcome.
Does the state have any subpoena served on her?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, that concludes your testimony. Thank you for coming in.
Okay, that's good. Glad she's gone.
All right, I'll
She
let the
didn't do
witness
anything.
step out. I think this would be the logical time
Waste
to make, take the mid-morning recess as well. So once the witness has cleared the courtroom, we'll go ahead and have our break.
Jeez.
All right, we'll take a 20-minute recess. Thank you.
All right.
Prior, you may call your next witness.
Defense calls Regan Price.
Regan Price. Didn't know her. Right. What did she didn't, she damn sure did not
The testimony
say
you're about to give will be the truth, the
she
whole
died
truth, and
of
nothing but the
natural
truth, so help you
causes.
God.
She just confirmed to everybody that these fucking shaking fits, nobody's ever seen them. Except for fucking man tits. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
She's, did you know that there were
All right, before we inquire, we did have a quick
bodies
sidebar
of
this morning on an
children
inquiry on the
buried
exclusionary
in
order
his
that
yard?
does not relate to this witness, correct? The sidebar?
No.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Pryor. So in this case, then, the witness is sworn, Ms. Price. I'll just have a few questions before we begin with your testimony. This trial has been publicly streamed online as well as reported in the news and open to the public here while it's taken place. Have you watched any of the testimony of any witness that's testified here in this trial?
No.
Okay. Have you talked to anyone else who has testified or talked to anyone about your testimony?
No.
Okay, thank you for confirming that. Mr. Pryor, if you'd like to start with your direct, you may.
And Judge, before we start, I have Defense Exhibit 76 that I'm going to move for admission. It represents approximately a 2-minute interview with Ms. Price. My understanding is that the state, Ms. Beatty, is going to stipulate to its admission.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Very well. Defense Exhibit 76 then will be admitted.
Judge, if I may have 76 returned to me after it's marked and entered.
Okay, we'll have the clerks mark the exhibit and have that returned.
And while we're waiting, Judge, if I can start if you'd like, if I may.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and start with your direct, you may, and we'll just have the bailiff now that he's got that, provide that to you, and then we can go.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Price.
Good morning.
And would you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Yep, it's Regan Price, and it's ReegenPrice.
And Ms. Price, at some point in 2018, 2019, you were a neighbor of Mr. Daybell and Tammy Daybell, is that correct?
That's correct.
And in
Right,
relation,
I'm sorry, could I get you to kind of talk right close to that microphone? It only picks it up if you're right next to it. Thank you.
and you noted that that was correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Can you tell me, did you live south of them off of 200? Is that fair?
Yes,
And across the street on the Salem Highway would have been Joe and Emma Murray.
yes,
So then Joe and Emma would have been kitty corner to Chad. Is that correct?
yes.
I'd like to draw your attention to September 9th of 2019. It's noted that you, at some point during that time, there are some reports that you heard some sort of a gunshot on that day. Do you recall that?
I do remember hearing gunshots on a certain day. I'm not for certain which date that is.
Okay. Did you-
Um,
Go ahead.
No, I'm,
Okay. And when you say gunshots, was it gunshots or gunshot?
to my knowledge, I remember there was maybe one, but
Okay. Okay. And to your recollection, you believe that it may or may not have been on September 9th?
I don't have a date.
Did you have an occasion to contact law enforcement and talk to them about that?
On a day that we did contact law enforcement, there was a couple things that we had discussed that was unusual, but it wasn't on that specific day with the shooting.
Okay. And at some point you've discussed this case with law enforcement on a couple of occasions. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Hey,
Okay.
Happy.
One of those would have been on or around June 9th of 2020.
I don't know the date, but
And then again, you had one on potentially on May 5th of 20. Do you recall that as well? A longer discussion?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. And Judge, I'd like to publish Defense Exhibit 76, if I could.
You may.
Sorry, I walked away.
I might need some assistance.
I have been too, Louis. Not this weekend, this past weekend, the weekend before. I listened to stuff I had already listened to from Hidden True Crime. A lot of stuff, right? Like did you watch all that? From Eric Smith and a ton of people. This shit's really nuts. But so many people really think that she was normal until she met him. That's not true. Another unexplained death due to natural causes happened just before she met him. And she got 50 grand out of that. Yeah. And Tylee got almost 2,000 a month. So no. They're both fucked up.
And gotten across, you know, because we weren't around them a lot, but the few times we were, it's easy to remember because we weren't around them a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for talking with me. I appreciate it. I'd like to get back to your kids, and I'm sure we're all you're all over the news right now, Fox
You know
News.
what, I was actually kind of glad that it wasn't all day. I'm like, are we gonna hear that like all day? Because it was like nice. This is the most peaceful this road has been in
Oh.
so long.
Don't have to worry about kids. They're
Right? Happy?
Yeah.
no one here. So
Lunatics. I know.
We seriously
I
did. 'Cause We were
know.
gonna build our house this year, but I told you like we wanted to get the rest of our debt paid off before we built that. We're just gonna build that.
Judge, could we have just a moment?
Yes.
Let's get out of that first.
And to just clarify, was that part of Exhibit 76 that was being published there?
I believe so, Judge. Yes.
Thank you.
Am I ready? Let's try again, Judge. You may want to stick around.
Found something.
yeah, it's good. Everything's good right now. Everything's a good
I
thing.
didn't know
All
everything
good,
will
yeah.
come out eventually.
Yeah.
You know, just makes the
Yeah.
curiosity, right?
Absolutely.
So what do I do?
Oh my gosh, Louis, I've tried to watch it twice and I've fallen asleep both times.
I can't really tell the timestamps, but I want to play the entire 2 minutes.
I really want to get through
It doesn't
that.
matter. I think we're ready, Judge.
Is it good?
All right. Give me just a moment here. Let me consult with.
And you're-
staff.
Hey, good. Welcome back, Frazzled. I do. I love hearing what jurors thought about things.
Want to have another person maybe take a look at that, Mr. Pryor, to see if any
Organized,
additional assistance
probably.
on that device.
Love to pick some brains, man. On a lot of cases, right? Like, just love. You know, so much of this stuff, we already know so much of it. They have to be going, what the fuck? She's a slow talker. Oh my God.
Was that-
You heard a gunshot then?
Yeah, and it was like, and they said it was a raccoon. And it was about that same time, we had set the timeline to Ron, because we checked our phone, and it was like was the Rob Wood, is that the prosecuting?
Uh-huh.
Okay. We had talked to them and we had looked it up on our phone records to try to put it together, you
Yeah.
know? But like our neighbors up here, like they will go shoot birds and stuff in the mornings. And so we'll hear that sometimes, but it was close. And like our bedroom window's right here, and we sleep with the window open most of the time because
Did you see anybody out there?
no, but we just heard it. So that's what we were thinking. We're like, it wasn't afternoon because he would have been at work. That it would have been morning. so.
Morning. Huh.
Anyways, we'll just keep
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, no, and even details that you're like, that's probably nothing. We take them, right?
Well,
I mean,
that's
this
what we
point,
decided after we told him, 'cause we were
Me
like,
too. I
"We've had
plan
for a
on it,
while," and we're like,
Louis.
"Maybe it will help," so
yeah.
just our timeline.
I plan on
experience
going
with
down there a couple of
Yeah.
days.
because we weren't around them.
I
all the time. A
don't
few times we
want to
went
go
and
down there
visited
every
them
day
because
because
we weren't-
it's a damn madhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for talking with me. I appreciate it. I'll let you get back to your kids, and I'm sure you're all over the news right now.
If you
I
come
just-
here,
I'm
I'll go
actually
with
kinda
you.
Glad that it wasn't all day. I'm like, are we gonna hear that like all day? Because it was like nice. This is the most peaceful this road has been in
Oh.
so long.
Don't have to worry about kids. They're
Yeah.
no one here, so.
Probably like this stuff.
We seriously do, because we were gonna build our house this year, but I told you like we wanted to get the rest of our debt paid off.
I was just going to say, I bet Queen would.
And we went out there to scope out where we were gonna put it, and I'm like, do you hear that? It's so
Judge, I can stop at this point.
Right.
Like just that much further away from it and you don't hear it. Cool. Good.
Come with.
So, Ms. Price, you've heard the audio tape, and I believe that goes back to June 9th of 2020. Do you recall that now?
If that's the date, but yes, I remember that conversation that I had.
Okay. And then you made some comment that you heard a shot and there was some discussion about raccoons. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then there was a further discussion about and it's unclear who you provided a timeline to, but you provided a timeline to somebody. Do you recall?
So my husband and I both discussed just some strange events that happened with the Daybells over the last year.
Okay.
And it was my husband and I creating a timeline together because like I've stated, I don't have any dates,
Okay.
but there was enough going on that we were trying to figure out where everything was so that by the time we did talk to
You
a detective
should.
or a police officer, it was informational and resourceful and beneficial to
August 1st.
them.
Do you recall in a later interview where there was a discussion about you and your husband, and your husband made some mention about that he'd be a really good detective? Do you remember that discussion?
I remember that in the audio, but
Okay.
that was my husband, not me.
And do you remember the discussion that you would work through Joe Murray to try to get some information about locating the kids,
I do. I remember that.
and that you'd be willing to wear a wire?
I do. I remember that. There was children missing and I was willing to do whatever it took to find these children.
Right. And then in addition, there was some talk about the fact that your husband in the past had plowed up, done some cultivation for Joe's garden or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct. He did it for a lot of the neighbors around the
Right.
neighborhood.
And Officer K had offered to,
Objection, hearsay.
was there a discussion about using,
Hold on, there's a pending objection. It's sustained.
was there a discussion about using police funds to help pay $50?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you engage in any discussion regarding accepting payment from the police to doing certain?
Objection, hearsay, misstates the evidence.
Overruled.
Did you do any kind of a discussion with the police for some sort of payment to work with the police and regarding the Daybell case?
I think in reference to that conversation that you're talking about, Officer K just comically said that, and it was more of a personal, it wasn't as an officer using officer funds.
And you took that as a joke, is that right?
I did.
All right, nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
What the hell is this? I don't understand.
All right, Ms. Beatty, cross-examination once you're ready.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Ms. Price. Do you prefer that I
You have
call
a
you Ms.
little
Price or
tiny
that I
house
call you
now.
Regan?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay,
Queen has a big
I'll go
house.
with Ms. Price. So you
Yeah.
testified that at
On the
some
next
point you heard
break,
a
I just
gunshot,
pulled up
correct?
I did. Yes.
And that was in the
Court
early morning? Was that
record
your
goes to
testimony?
court
I
papers.
believe it was.
Do you remember when
Court
what
record.
day that took place? I believe it was your testimony that you didn't remember the specific day.
Yes, I don't remember the date.
Do you remember the time frame?
I don't. Just looking back at the audio, being refreshed with that, but as far as it's been 4 years, to my knowledge, it was just based off of that. It was morning, afternoon time, but not a specific time.
Could it have been at some point before September 9th?
Definitely.
Could it have been at some point after September 9th?
I don't recall it was after September 9th.
Okay. And out in the country, is it uncommon
Yep,
for people to have guns?
8/1/24.
No, it's very common for people to have guns.
Now, you briefly testified about your discussion with Officer K. Would that be Detective Kai Kamanu?
It is, yes,
Okay. And you joked around with him.
very briefly,
Did you ever accept payment from law enforcement?
never.
Okay. And if I may have just one moment.
You may.
And I have no further questions for this witness.
We could wear storm shirts.
Oh, hold on. We've got
Sorry.
direct possibly.
Sorry.
You may.
Ms. Price, you don't have a direct recollection of when you heard that gunshot, correct?
I don't.
But did you recall hearing on the audio tape that there was a combination of a gunshot, a raccoon, and the name Chad Daybell? How often does those three happen on a particular day?
Objection misstates the testimony, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Judge, I have nothing else. Thank you.
All right. That will conclude the testimony of this witness. I
Okay,
don't know
to
if she's
me,
appearing
what
under
that
subpoena.
sounded like-
If so, I'd
maybe
like to
I
inquire
missed
whether or not she
something,
can
but-
be released from the subpoena.
And Your Honor, I
Maybe
believe the
trying to
state did
get
have her under
info.
subpoena. We would release her
Middle
under
of-
subpoena at this point.
And Judge, the defense has her under subpoena, and we're releasing her as well.
Okay, that concludes your testimony then. You
Yeah.
can go ahead and leave.
We can
And
definitely.
Judge,
get
could we have a
drink.
quick sidebar?
Yes.
We can use a red Solo cup and have some Tito's. Or whatever is your pleasure. Yeah, there's lots of shit to do around here. We could probably even get Mr. Snotty to drop us off down at the courthouse so we wouldn't have to, because parking's got to be a mess down there and crap. I bet he would drop us off and pick us up. Well, there was that one that we went to on the field trip too. That's Mesa Gateway. But probably more than likely Sky Harbor. Sky Harbor is like 15 minutes from my house, if that. With no traffic, it's like really close. But pretty much always a little bit of traffic. You like tequila?
All right, counsel, I've had a sidebar in terms of scheduling. The defense has two more
Tequila
witnesses.
makes the gloves come
that are
off of this
scheduled to
girl.
appear today. One hasn't quite
There we go.
arrived because I guess we went a little quicker through the morning than anticipated. The other will be here shortly after the lunch break. So at this time, there are some matters the court can take up to use this time on a few motions and things that would be outside the presence of the jurors as
Okay,
well.
let's look at. Okay, we're in recess, so I'll just pull this up really super quick, guys. If nobody minds. Hey, no. Let me have that. No. Let me have that, please. Let me have it, please. Thanks. No. So, pretrial conference is 7:25, trial 8/1. Can you guys see it? Oh, see, it was scheduled for April, which I can remember thinking it was going to be going on at the same time as fucking Man Tits. That was going to be a mess. I'm glad it actually got pushed out. That was really fast too, from when they brought her here. When did she get here? The warrant was issued, in 23. Okay. See, remember the charges were on here, you guys. Where are the charges? She got here in like December, I think. See, this is what, look at this, okay? It says murder first degree. Everyone keeps saying that she's not being charged with murder. That is what it says right here. Yep, 7/11/19. And see, that's what it says, you guys. But so many things don't say that. Okay, stop it. Louise. See, so because stop it. So you guys, I thought it was going to be like conspiracy or something else because stop. That's enough, Louise. Oh my God, this dog. So because there's death penalty here. She could get death penalty with first degree murder, I think. But everyone says she's not being charged with murder here. But that, you guys, I'm not crazy. That is exactly what that says. Murder first degree. I don't understand why. It's so weird to me. I don't know. Whatever. I'm nobody, but I want to say this. So I was listening to Silver Lining podcast this weekend, and the uncle and the brother, somebody asked them, do they think that Lori herself might have shot Charles? And they said she could have. They don't. They know the way what was told went down there is not what happened. Everybody knows that. But they even said, you know what? He was shot twice. Right? Like they said they're not saying that she did, but who knows, really? They said he was shot twice. Maybe they both shot him once. Who knows? Nobody really. They said they wouldn't doubt it. I mean, typically she keeps her hands clean, but I don't think that she really cares if she does hurt someone. Pretty wild, huh? Right. There are so many things and nobody's ever going to know. Crazy. It's a wild and crazy situation. Yeah, I am super jazzed to see that trial. For sure. Okay. That would be so fun, Louis. Wow, what went on here? It'll be very interesting to see what all comes out of that. Oh, I'm not sharing it. Again, I'm not sharing. Sorry. I can't wait to, I want to, does it say who the prosecutor is on that? I hope it's not that woman that I can't stand. Tina K. All right. I don't think that's the one I don't like. Oh, I need to look up like her attorney. Gerald Bradley. Huh. What is happening? I thought we're back on here. Oh shit, you guys, what am I doing? I didn't. I am sorry. Shit.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
He's trying to act like these cops did something wrong. That's really pissing me off. I think this looks like one of those cops, I think. We didn't push play.
All right, before we get started with direct examination, I just want to inquire of the witness. First, is there a title you go by? Investigator, officer, agent, etc.?
Investigator's fine, Your Honor.
Investigator. All right. Investigator, is it Gerri?
Karadic.
Karadic. Have you observed any of this trial since it began either on the live stream or here in person at all?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Have you talked to anyone else about testimony they've given in trial?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you for answering those questions. You may go ahead and start your direct, Mr. Pryor.
Investigator, would you state your name and spell your last name for the record for me, please?
Asmir Karadic, Kararic.
All right. Investigator, how are you employed?
I am working right now for Idaho Attorney General's office as an investigator.
In June of approximately 2020, were you employed in the same capacity?
Yes, sir.
At what time were you asked to participate in an investigation regarding Tammy Daybell?
I believe I was assigned this case on April 10th of 2020.
Okay, and on April 10th, was there a ending date for that investigation or your participation?
Our office ended this investigation, I believe, in February of next year.
So at some point, you were asked to participate in an investigation, and then in February, you were asked to cease that investigation. Is that correct?
Correct.
At some point, did you come to some conclusion regarding the investigation, or was there some other reason for the ceasing of the investigation?
I was asked by my chief to end the investigation
Panda.
because the Fremont County Prosecutor's
are
Office
you?
wanted the case back.
Okay, and originally they handed the
Gerri.
case to your office, is that
What
correct?
up, man?
Correct, for prosecution.
And then at some point, they elected to ask that the case be returned to them, is that correct?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
wow.
Okay. As part of your investigation, did you engage in an interview with a person by the
I
name
do
of
too,
Melanie Gibb?
Panda Berry.
Yes, I
Thank
did.
you.
And can you recall the date or dates that you interviewed Ms. Gibb?
That was August 5th of 2020.
And as part of that investigation, was that recorded?
Yes, it was.
Was it your normal policy to record interviews of witnesses?
Yes, sir.
And that's generally a good practice, would you agree?
Yes,
To ensure that you get an accurate reflection of what was discussed during the interview, correct?
correct.
I want to go back, if you can recall, the amount of time you spent during the interview.
The interview was 3 hours, 38 minutes, and I forget the seconds. It's about 182-page report.
Would that be a considerable interview?
Yes,
More so than on the average?
yes,
Would it tend to be on the large end of an interview?
yes.
And can you explain to me why the interview took so long?
Well, we had a lot to discuss. I had a lot of questions that I wanted to know from Ms. Gibb. Uh, Wanted to know how she was aware of anything in this case, if she knew Lori Vallow, Chad, and their beliefs.
At any time, did you start asking questions about her personal beliefs?
Well, I clarified some things with her because she said a lot of things that I did not really understand. I didn't understand what she was talking about. But yeah, it did lead to that.
And part of the questioning about that was she was expressing her opinion about her personal beliefs and on topics that you didn't quite even understand what she was talking about?
There was a lot that I didn't understand, so I would have her clarify. But it does. It wasn't a topic of her personal beliefs.
Okay, it was or was not?
It was. It seemed to be.
Okay, and can you recall what some of the topics that she discussed with you that were part of her personal beliefs that you did not understand?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to relevance as to Ms. Gibbs' personal beliefs.
Overruled.
You may answer.
Some of the things that she was talking about is, I call it the scale, the light or dark. She gave me the impression that she can maybe was able to determine if a person was either light or dark.
Is that something that she advised you of?
She kind of hinted at it.
Okay. And there were other options. She talked about her personal understanding of casting.
She did talk about that.
Okay. She talked about her personal understanding of being able to use vibrations as a means of healing or something to that effect.
Something to that effect. Yeah.
And these were visions, or the visions, excuse me. These were topics that she, in your opinion, she expressed that she had a true belief in. Is that correct?
During the interview, I believe that she believed in that.
Okay. Now, just to reiterate, this was on August 5th of 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it was more than a year after the allegations relating to the start of the case with Mr. Daybell and others. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I would object. I believe that misstates the evidence.
Okay.
Sustained.
Now, at the end of this, and would it be fair to say that this was sort of a teaching to you of her religious theories and beliefs?
For me, it was, since I didn't really understand it. It felt like she was educating me a lot about her beliefs.
Okay. Okay. And she didn't say where she got these beliefs from, did she?
No.
Okay. She never told you that Chad Daybell taught her about all of these beliefs, did she?
She did talk in the interview that she heard from Chad and Lori some of the same things that she was mentioning.
Okay. But at no time did she tell you that it was Chad Daybell who taught you about all of these unusual, I'm sorry, Judge, all of these beliefs that she discussed with you?
Not specifically.
Okay. At some point, the interview ended. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then at some point, there was a further discussion that was off the tape, correct?
Correct.
And in all respect to you, officer, you contacted me and told me about that openly, did you not?
I did.
You discussed with me that upon review and being received a subpoena from my office, you discovered that there was a portion of that interview that was not properly recorded, correct?
Correct.
You didn't anticipate that Ms. Gibb would continue to talk to you after the recording was pushed off, did you?
Correct.
Okay. And what was the topic of that discussion?
After the interview was done, it was more because I was curious. Her talking about the scale of light and dark discussion. I believe she mentioned that I was nice, that I was a good person. And so I just asked the question, what did she believe on the scale? Where would she rate me?
And did she respond to you?
She did.
What did she say?
She stated that I was on the light side, that I was so light that I was given this light aura.
And was that something that she made? She didn't tell you that was Chad Daybell told her how to do that, did she?
No, she did not.
She did that on her own initiative. Is that right?
Objection misstates the evidence.
I have nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
All right. All right, Ms. Beatty, when you're ready, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. During your interview with Melanie Gibb, did she ever tell you that she created this belief system that Lori and Chad also adhered to?
No, she did not.
In fact, did she not tell you that she met Chad through Lori and that she was a follower of some of their teachings?
Yes.
Didn't she tell you that Chad would tell Lori about these ideas and that Lori would then convey them to her?
Yes.
So isn't it fair to say that many of these ideas, whether or not Melanie Gibb adhered to them, did in fact come from Chad Daybell?
Judge, objection, speculation.
Your Honor, it goes straight to,
It's overruled, Ms. Beatty.
you may answer.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Includes cross, any redirect, Mr. Pryor?
No, Judge, this witness may be excused from the defense. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you for coming in and testifying. I don't believe he'll remain under any subpoena, will he,
No, Judge, not from my office.
in the state?
He's released by the state.
Okay, thank you for appearing. Thank you, Your Honor. You may call your next witness, Mr. Pryor.
Judge, may I approach again to the podium?
Yes.
We would call Rick Schmidt.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Okay, before we begin with testimony again, I'll ask this witness as well. Do you have a particular title you go by, agent, officer, et cetera?
Rick Schmidt.
Okay. Mr. Schmidt, then I do want to inquire, have you been observing in any way any of the trial testimony that's taken place since this case started?
This was the issue that was brought up on the sidebar earlier.
Oh, okay. And counsel, could we have a quick second sidebar on that? All right, counsel, thank you for the reminder. We are going to have the jurors just quickly line up and wait out in the hallway for a moment while we take up a brief matter outside your presence, and then we'll have you return right back in for additional testimony here.
All right, please.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, counsel, we had the jurors excused for a moment. In a sidebar, I was notified there may have been an issue with some inadvertent exposure to trial testimony by this witness. We thought it was something that would best taken up outside the jurors' presence. I believe the state identified the issue, and perhaps we could just have a quick question of the witness on this, or I'll just, based on the proffer, I guess, pose the question. Mr. Schmidt, it was advised to the court that you may have overheard some trial testimony of a previous witness. Is that correct?
Yes,
And what was it that you recall hearing that was testified to in the case?
it was by Ron Arnold. He said, when Mr. Pryor asked him a question, he said, I don't know, you own the property, you tell me.
And how was it that you came about hearing that?
I was playing on a device when I came home from work that my wife was watching, and
Okay. And beyond that, did you listen to or hear any other trial testimony?
no,
Okay. And certainly I understand those things can happen. I want to make clear, I'm not saying you've done anything wrong here, other than we need to get the issue out on the record before you testify. So knowing that that comment was overheard, does the defense, I'll start with you, Mr. Pryor, do you have any questions for him in regards to what he may have heard on that?
No, none whatsoever.
All right. Does the state have any questions for the witness before we move on to that?
No.
Okay, we'll go ahead and have the jurors brought back in. I just wanted to not bring that fact up again in front of the jurors since they were instructed to disregard it previously. So the jurors can return and you can just start on with your direct at that time. Thank you, Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Please offer the count for you.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Sorry, guys, I was changing a stinky. So I have been gone for a moment. Hey, Cindy.
All right, Mr. Pryor, if you'd like to commence with direct, you may.
Good afternoon, Mr. Schmidt.
Hi.
At some point, you were referred to as Officer Schmidt. Is that right?
Yes,
That was in June of 2019, 2020.
yes.
And which department were you with, sir?
The Rexburg Police Department?
Okay. At some point, you were assigned a task to participate in some sort of excavation or shovel work on June 9th of 2020 on the Daybell property. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recall testifying in a previous proceeding last April of 2023 and being asked questions about boundaries and your role in that task that you were tasked with?
yes,
Okay. Do you recall being asked about whether or not there were any boundaries given at that point when you were testifying last April of 2023?
yes.
Do you recall what your response was?
I said there was no boundaries.
Okay. And then you were asked a question about whether or not they said, here's a shovel, go out there and find some stuff. Do you recall being asked about that as well?
Yes,
Do you recall what your response was?
yes.
What was your response?
Something to the fact that, something like that.
Okay. Would it help to refresh your recollection if I showed you something?
Yes,
Judge, may I have could I have the deputy provide the officer with a transcript of his testimony? And
Yes, you may.
where the asterisk is there. Just have him read it, just the first line in the answer.
All right, so this is being proffered to refresh his recollection. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Judge. And officer, after you read it, then the deputy will run it back to me. He'll show you where he wants you to read. Now, officer, in that hearing back in April of 2023, you were asked just, hey, here's a shovel, go out there and find some stuff. Do you recall being asked that?
yes,
And what was your response?
pretty much.
Is it possible your response was yes?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
pretty much.
Oh,
Pretty much was in there too.
okay. Pretty much was in there as well. Judge, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. Cross from the state.
What? Oh, I gotta find my phone.
Good afternoon, Mr. Schmidt.
Hi.
Do you still have that transcript up with you?
No,
You were asked about the morning where the events took place on Chad Daybell's residence on June 9th, 2020, correct?
yes,
And you were asked about some answers you gave in a prior evidentiary hearing.
yes,
Judge, could we have a sidebar?
Yes.
Let me see. I know this sidebar crap. Hey, Faith. It's actually afternoon here, finally, huh? I know every time I say good morning, everyone's like, seriously? I say good morning, and Love Louie's like, I slept till noon. I'm like, really? Because it's not even noon. The sidebar
All
stuff.
right, thank you. The court.
He asked
in the
him one
sidebar there just
question.
discussed
Am I
with Counsel,
right about
some
this?
terminology in the questioning. There was a reference to a term evidentiary hearing made in the cross-examination. The court would instruct the jurors to disregard that term evidentiary hearing and just have a reference that a hearing took place. So, Mr. Wood, if you'd like to continue with your cross, you may.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt, you were asked about your involvement on June 9th, 2020.
Yes,
And where were you that day?
on Chad Daybell's property.
And you were asked about a couple of specific questions you were asked last year.
Yes.
Let's talk about that real quick. You were asked about boundaries.
Yes.
Do you recall what that question was in regards to?
No.
Would it refresh your memory to see a transcript of what you testified to last year?
Yes. Okay.
And if you can put that down, thank you. Do you recall, in relation to what were you asked about boundaries?
In the search, a grid search.
All right. And do you recall what specific area you were searching or that you were asked about searching in regards to those boundaries?
Yes, the fire pit and the pet cemetery areas.
As you sit there today, do you recall there being any type of grid or boundary at those areas when you were searching?
I don't, just right inside the fire pit and then the pet cemetery area. No specific boundaries in relation to those areas.
Right. Do you recall seeing any type of grid placed on the ground?
I don't remember that.
You were also asked about something to the effect of being handed a shovel and walking around.
Yes.
When you first arrived at Mr. Daybell's property, what was the first thing you did?
I don't recall the first thing that I did.
Okay. At any point, did you have a shovel
Yes.
and walk around the property?
Yes.
And was that something you were instructed to do?
Yes.
Do you recall who instructed you to do it?
I believe it was Steve Daniels.
And do you recall who Steve Daniels is?
He's FBI. He's with the forensic. I think he was in charge of the scene that day.
So in fact, weren't you told before the search really got going in any specific areas to look around the property and see if you saw anything irregular?
Judge objection goes beyond the scope of direct.
Overruled.
Oh.
Yes.
And were you with anyone else when you did that?
Yes.
Who were you with? Do you remember?
I remember Colin Erickson from the police department and Travis. I can't remember his last name, but he was FBI. And we were instructed to walk around the field and look for soft spots or different areas that looked different.
I hope you are having a beautiful day.
If I may have one moment, Your Honor.
You may.
Oh, the name of that pathologist. What was her name? Shit. Let me see if I
Your Honor, I have
can
no
find
further
it.
questions.
Judge, there will be no further questions from the defense.
What was that guy
We'll
there
conclude
for?
your testimony then, Mr. Schmidt. Was either side intending to have him held under subpoena until the trial's done?
Not from the defense, Judge. Thank you.
Not from the state?
Okay, then you're released from the subpoena. Thank you for coming in and testifying today. You're welcome. All right, Mr. Pryor, as I understand it, based on discussions we've had, the defense is not prepared with another witness this afternoon. Is that correct?
Judge, because of the travel, some of my experts will not be available until 8:30 tomorrow morning.
Okay, well, if that's where we stand, then we're going to need to go ahead and recess for the day. We'll continue from the court side of things, working on other administrative issues as we get towards the conclusion of this trial. I do want to let the jury know we're certainly mindful of your time and doing our best to get productive days in for you, to not extend things out unnecessarily. In a trial of this length, it can be difficult given the timing of scheduling things months and months in advance. So we're doing our best here, but we are going to go ahead and
Catherine
recess for the
Raven.
day, and we'll continue again in the morning then with another defense witness at 8:30. Thank you for your attentiveness today. As you break for the day, please follow the continuing instruction of the court to not discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please don't do anything to investigate the case or follow any media that.
Okay, we're done with that. Catherine Raven with a K. Oh. So we're done for the day, huh? Sorry, I'm in the kitchen. I need some coffee and start some supper. I didn't know we were going to be done for the day. So what do you guys think? You think they have done anything to help him? I don't. I don't think so at all. Yeah, you don't have to. Not at all. We don't have to at all. Gordy. So we got some new sofas the other night. They just got here today. I don't know. I'll try to show you. Oh, I don't think they did anything to help themselves. Their pathologist said death was undetermined. So she sure didn't say that it was natural. I don't know. Can you see my new couch? I don't know if you can see it or not. It does all kinds of fun stuff. Jack's been turning everything off and on. It has these LED lights. Let's see. Oh, let me get rid of that thing. Okay, now we're back. Back to normal. Right? Is that your couch at the with all the LED? This thing's kind of cool. Look, it has phone chargers. Check this out. So this lifts up and you can turn on these lights. I'm not sure why, but you know, whatever. But it has phone chargers right here. And it has USB plugs too. What did I do? Oh my gosh, I don't know what I did. Right? Yeah, that's the love seat right there. And that one is the couch. And they have massagers and they heat up and all that stuff. We took our other sofa up to the cabin a while back, or a couple weeks ago, so we just haven't had anything here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start like unplugging them or something because Jack's got everything fired up on him and probably run it down. How do your kids do with it, Mama? Oh, really? The drink holders stay cool? Really? I didn't even know that. Sis, you will like the recliners. You can adjust the head and the feet. Yeah, I didn't hear. What? He said murder? Where? What did I miss? I unplugged my, okay, I was thinking. He's so funny though. He's been kicking back, has hands all like this and stuff. Okay, Pryor called it murder. He meant, wow, what? Right. Yeah, when you stay the night, sis. Yep. Oh my God. Okay, what I like to do is watch, usually as soon as I get done, I watch Lauren's lunch live. You guys want to watch that? Wow, wow, wow. Sis, we're going to go to the Lori Vallow trial a couple of days. You want to go? Love Louie's going to come and go with us. I didn't hear, how did I miss? I did not hear him say that. Yes, he did when he was talking with, I think, the path. Wow. Right? Oh my God. Me too. That's what I do after I get done here. Me too. When he was doing, wow, legs, I had missed it. I mean, she didn't say that she died of natural causes. And those kids actually are, I don't like those kids. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't like those kids. I don't like the way they talked about their mom, the way they don't care about dead kids. I don't like them.
Hey everyone, waiting for a thumbs up.
I bet she'll talk about it, right? She'll tell it.
It's always a little slow out here. There we go. Okay, we have people. I'm with my favorite juror. Just kidding, Tom. Just kidding. Tom. I'm joke. Bad joke. Bad joke. I'm with my favorite juror. Wait, no, that was a joke. That was so what I just did there is what John Pryor did in court. Let's talk about that first and foremost.
Was it a murder or wasn't it?
Was it a murder? Is she my favorite juror or is she my favorite juror? Was it a murder or was it a time of death, John Pryor? Let's first talk about that. Can you share? So I have the exact quote. Oh, shoot. It's on my phone, though, and I can't get to my phone. But in talking about Tammy Daybell's time of death during redirect for Tom Pryor, when it came to his expert witness, pathologist Catherine Falcon, he went back and he was asking about confirmation bias. I have the exact quote on my Facebook page as well as Twitter. He states, implies, isn't this normal though for, are you going to pull it up? Did I send it to you? Oh, will you go to my Facebook, go to the Hidden True Crime, actually go to Hidden True Crime's Facebook page or go
I don't have Facebook.
Okay, go to that then. Okay, Laura's going to pull it up. My not favorite juror. And when I mean juror, she's clearly not a juror for this case. Let me clarify that. Laura was a juror last year for the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. Okay, thank you. Here is the quote from John Pryor, a jaw-dropping moment describing Tammy Daybell's death and autopsy. Chad Daybell's attorney, John Pryor, states, quote, "Is that an example of confirmation bias? when you take into account all of these other reports, documents, statements of people who are not present at the murder, end quote. Thank you, Laura. In other words, during this defense witness where John Pryor's trying to prove that it could possibly be natural causes that caused Tammy Daybell's death, he then calls it a murder himself. What were your thoughts when you heard that, Laura? And did you hear it when it was happening?
I didn't hear it.
She didn't hear it.
Well,
So-
I heard it, but I have opinion bias listening to it, right? Because you said murder. I thought, yeah, murder. But then when you put the quote out, I was like, he did
Who is
say
who?
that. I mean, he knows.
Faith.
We know. It was a murder.
This is Lauren.
So in other words,
Matthias.
as far as the jurors go there, whether they catch it or not,
Her and her
I mean, if
husband
they
have a
don't catch it,
awesome
it might be because they already assume it's a murder. If they do catch it and they're like wavering,
I think that with the number of people who noticed it that were sitting in the gallery, that some of the jurors are going to notice that he said that. Might not be all of them, and whether it's a big deal to them or not, I'm not sure. But I don't think the expert witness was very good on the stand.
no, she was not. In fact, I wrote in chat, honestly, I had a bit of secondhand embarrassment listening to Lindsay Blake cross the expert witness. And John Matthias, my husband, often serves as an expert witness for the court. And I'll have to be honest, when he does that, he's gone for 3 days doing testing at a jail, and like he leaves no stone unturned. So for her to say that she didn't look at all these things,
The pertinent things. Who decided what was pertinent? John Pryor decided. So that to me is opinion bias too. I mean, she has the same thing, you know. She knew what he wanted out of her as an expert witness, and he got it. But I don't think she was very well spoken for being an expert and saying that she had.
That's
done
what
it
I said
300
too.
times
The way
and
he
like,
did it
no.
is that
yeah, well, the irony is, let me just explain it this way too.
Opinion bias.
John is
Or
no
what-
pathologist, but he is a
I
psychologist
didn't mean
that
opinion.
is an
Hey,
expert
Bobby.
witness in court cases, including murder cases, offender cases. And what these interviews are in deciding the cause of death are very important. They're called collateral interviews, collateral evidence. They are evidence, and they go into the objective cause of death. That's evidence. So to not use those, for her to discuss confirmation bias, which the irony wasn't lost on me. Let me just share that in a second. But for her to discuss confirmation bias and then
Oh my God.
pretty
see?
much confess to saying, yeah, I didn't even
What
look
he's
at all
doing?
the evidence that the medical examiner's office looked at, is pretty bad. And then let's also talk about this irony of confirmation bias. I mean, John and I talk about confirmation bias
You're
all
just
the
gonna
time,
play with that thing.
which is essentially someone has such a strong bias in their brain, you know, we all have it, but some worse than others, that they refuse to see the evidence right in front of them. It happens to a lot of people. And we always have to check our biases. So the irony was not lost on me that we just heard from the Daybell children, and their confirmation bias is off the chart. Someone even came out to me today and like, how could they not see this? They refuse to see the evidence. It's confirmation bias. Laura's nodding her head. She's like, yes, yes. And so for that to be a defense strategy, I don't think was necessarily lost on the jury either. It just leaves people confused. We're like, yeah, right. You got to look at all the evidence. You got to check your biases. Always, you know, always check your biases. Always be aware. And we just hear from like Joe Murray today, where he's like, we'll get to that. In fact, let's get to that now. But anyway, that was to me the biggest moment of court today, in my opinion, was that Freudian slip by John Pryor, referring to Tammy Daybell's death as a murder. And look, if it was JJ or Tylee's death, I don't think anyone's disputing JJ and Tylee were murdered. They're disputing whether Tammy Daybell was murdered. And at that moment, John Pryor is trying to convince the jury that it was natural with this witness, and he calls it a murder. Okay, so I want to, Laura and I have not talked. I want to get a fresh take from a juror's point of view. Last year's Lori Vallow juror. What were your thoughts about
Shit, I'm sorry.
Joseph
That was
Murray
muted.
today
Sorry,
and
guys.
yesterday? And, you know, whatever, anything that's on your mind.
I think you know, he made that comment about law enforcement, and
Wow.
that was really disturbing to me. You know, I
Me
have
too.
family in law enforcement, and I've gotten, you know, to know the guys that have been on this case too, and it was really disgusting to me. There was dead children buried in that backyard, and you have it out for law enforcement. And then
Right. This
I
is
guess
what I
it
was
kinda
saying,
goes
all
to
this.
Emma's testimony too of, well, I haven't talked to John Pryor. He hasn't told me what to say. Oh, so nobody's told you what to say, and the two of you didn't talk about what to say?
I know.
Okay. Do you think we're stupid?
Right.
I don't know.
You're being called as a defense witness.
Yeah. And you're the child or the son-in-law of the defendant they're trying to get off.
Right.
I mean,
You live in his home.
yeah. And you got how many thousands of dollars from him and a vehicle and
Oh, is this the one that
Right.
he?
It wasn't lost on the
See,
jury.
I never even get that far into
No,
it. before I
I'm
fall asleep,
asking you. Do you
apparently.
think it was lost
Oh.
on the jury?
it wouldn't have been for me.
I like.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I'm agreeing with what she's saying.
I don't think it was either.
myself.
Yeah.
I think
I don't know if that's
they're
what you're
picking up
saying,
a lot.
Peggy.
I think it's an attentive jury
I agree with
Yes, for sure. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think they're tired.
for sure. You were tired at the end of yours, and this has gone on now a lot longer than yours did.
Yeah, and they have a lot more on their shoulders. You know, people were complaining that they made a comment about people passing notes and stuff. And I just want to say for people who make those comments is this jury has got a lot of trauma in their head, and they haven't been able to talk about it with anybody. And so the little things are probably driving them crazy, and they would probably prefer if we all weren't there. And I understand that. So
Right. And people
passion for them.
Yeah, and people are closer to the
I don't know what
jurors
this is about.
today too because of all the people coming to see the defense. And to clarify, the note passing is not to the jurors. Let's be clear. What's happening is people in the gallery are taking notes on notebooks about what is being said, and allegedly that has been also just a distraction, I guess, to those sitting close to the jury box. I don't think they necessarily can read anything, but I think
No,
just
it's the papers.
it's the papers being flipped and pen, and they would prefer people taking notes on their phone, is what was said. Let's talk about Joseph Murray for a second because, okay, we'll see you. Thank you, Laura. Thank you.
Murray sounds like he's
My
got
not
a
favorite
in his
jurors.
mouth.
I'm just gonna keep confusing Tom Evans. No, just kidding. Just kidding, Tom. Let's talk about Joe Murray because it was a wild testimony. You know, for those that saw
I don't like.
John, my husband, Matthias's show yesterday with John after Emma Murray, Joe's wife and Chad Daybell's daughter, testified, as well as Garth. John pointed out some things that were very concerning. That her standing and defending that she is the one that Googled the wind direction the day before Tylee's
Yeah.
was
Right, you guys.
burned and buried in the yard actually sort of implicates her in these crimes. Well, if that's the case, and I see where my husband John is coming from, Joseph Murray didn't make it much better today.
Directions.
He's switched his story about whose car is who, and that was brought up. He's claiming that the truck belongs to Chad now, when he had stated
Nobody
very
cares about
early
that
on that
fucking
it
truck.
was his mother-in-law's, as well as in writing. Thank you, East Idaho News, for pointing this out. The day Tammy Daybell died, Emma Daybell wrote an entire memorial to her mother about the death and thanking everyone for their outpouring of love, and then referred to it as her mom's truck. So the stories are changing. Then when you hear Joseph Ryan's absolute heart-crushing indifference to children being buried in the yard of the place he's living, you know, everybody's actually wondered about that. That's a question. How can they live in that house when children were buried and found there? Like, that would just be heart-wrenching. How can they live in the house where their mother was killed? Well, I think we know a little bit more why and how. Their absolute indifference. So Joseph Ryan, angry at the fact that Detective Ray Hermosillo would drive by the yard to check on things after two children were discovered there, remains, that it's a crime scene, Joseph Murray says, yeah, no, there's no reason for law enforcement to drive by our house, the crime scene, after 2 children were found buried and dismembered and burned there. No reason at all. And they pushed him. Are you sure? But 2 children were buried there. You don't think it's appropriate for a law enforcement official to slowly drive by? Joseph Murray, no, not appropriate. Once the children are found, donezo. Not okay. Not okay. And then he goes on to say, and this was another, I would say, jaw-dropping moment of the trial, is when Joseph Murray and Ingrid even caught it. She was like, what did you just say? Ms. Beatty was like, wait, what did you just say? Even from not the podium. And it was, he said, and he repeated it. I would never, ever be in law enforcement. I can't remember the exact quote. Someone might have it, but like, he would never, it would be the last career of his choice. He would never do it because he disrespects them so much. He has no respect for law enforcement. So this is a man who lives in a house where 2 children were found buried, and he has zero respect for the men who had to uncover these remains and investigate this case. Zero respect, zero compassion, zero empathy, and he's willing to change his story to protect his father-in-law, who is a defendant in this case. So if for anybody that's ever wondered about Joseph Murray and how he can handle living in this house that's owned by John Pryor, even though they never talk allegedly or have ever talked, even though they live in his house, there you go. He sees no reason for law enforcement to investigate any further once the bodies were removed, and does not appreciate this investigation or their care and concern for murdered children. So if you want to know what I've been thinking about Dr. John Mathias, my husband's words yesterday, and how this looks. We know that Emma Daybell was steeped into this belief system, and she admitted as much on the stand because she believed an individual had even entered her body when she had anxiety once, an evil spirit, and her dad had to do a casting on her. We know that she narrated 3 or 4 of Julie Rowe's books, and when the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints stepped in and said, hey, public, these books aren't great, she defended Julie Rowe. We know again that she was very close to many people practicing this belief system. And now we know that her husband has somewhat of a very indifferent attitude towards murdered children. We also learned yesterday and today there's an indifference to their mother.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, the way they have treated their kids. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Queen. Thank you. Yeah, I love that channel. Yeah, I don't think he did himself any favors. I don't think it went well. I don't think that and it's showing that his children are not nice people at all. Not even to their own mother, for fuck's sake.
It's, you know, as Emma Daybell explained on the stand yesterday, it's not a goodbye, it's just to see you soon. Well, and she didn't take care of herself. She wasn't healthy. She had no friends. She cheated on her Fitbit. She didn't run a 5K. And she ate McDonald's. The McDonald's thing is interesting too. Yes, I ate a quarter pounder for on behalf of Tammy Daybell yesterday. It was delicious. But let's not forget Lindsay Blake in that moment, where that kind of confused even me at the time, because I had a hard time remembering all the evidence sometimes, where she asked on cross a couple weeks ago or a week ago, I've lost track of time, where she said there was no Big Mac found in Tammy Daybell's stomach during that autopsy, right? And the medical examiners, correct. Just potatoes and peanuts So then you have to wonder about that story too.
It does, Queen.
Did they really bring her McDonald's? Did she really eat McDonald's that night? Doesn't
You
seem
remember
like
I
it.
said this yesterday.
This idea
What
that
the
she ate
hell? I don't
McDonald's and
understand.
threw up. Is that story real?
See,
Doesn't seem
some
like
of this
it.
stuff, I'm not even sure
Is
why.
anything these children telling us real? It certainly feels, I'm unsure now. And I'm just talking like I might be the jury. It sure doesn't seem like we can trust any of these defense witnesses right now. Regan Price coming up.
Wow.
This was a nothing burger, in my opinion.
Okay, good, because I
they
didn't get
called
anything
her,
out of that.
the neighbor. Her parents warmly and kindly hosted the memorial fence when the Daybell family pulled it down. You know, that whole idea of two missing kids found in their yard, indifferent. And so they hosted the memorial sign in their yard. She testified today, and I guess it was because of a raccoon.
I didn't know they did that.
A raccoon.
What?
There was a raccoon issues, and people have shotguns, and some people, you know, take care of them. It was really a nothing burger. She didn't say much. And I don't think that's going to sway the jury either way either. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
I didn't understand.
Let me tell you what happened after. So we recessed, right? But we all had to stay upstairs because they're discussing some things without the public or the jury being in there. So no gallery, no jury. That really hasn't happened a ton. Most sidebars, we've been allowed to be in there sitting in court. But in this situation, they requested us to leave. But we were all hanging around for a while because we thought we'd go back in. And then they came out and announced, hey, everyone can go take a lunch break. And so the lunch break concludes in about 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes, just, you know. I don't know if any moderators. Oh, yeah, I see moderators. If anybody can put the link to our live chat and our live stream in chat, that would mean so much. Because I hope that we can all go back there and regroup. You have a little bit of a break. Go get yourself a quarter pounder or anything you desire. And we're going to have 2 new witnesses today, allegedly. Or you know what? Maybe, you know, we were going to have 1 witness before lunch and 1 after. Clearly, there's no witness before lunch. That was another thing. A witness was running late. He has one scheduled for after. So now I don't know, you know, who we're going to see this afternoon, if we're going to see 2 witnesses or 1 witness. But I think
if there's anything that you want to know
to my fellow pot stirrers and Venus flytraps and trial watchers and
these guys and me,
and
these guys have interviewed everybody though.
Of victims. Let's we'll regroup here in our live stream chat in about 40 minutes. And then Dr. John is watching the trial today as well. And so we are going to attempt to go live later today. I don't have a link yet. I'm working on a link because we're trying to get an exact time that works for both of us. But check back for that as well. Hopefully we'll figure that out. All right. So a lot happening here. We're going through witnesses fast too, really fast. Everybody's asking, could the trial end this week? Could it go on? Both could happen. We could go another 2 weeks. Maybe it concludes this week. I don't know. But it's big. So stick with us. And I'll bring you all the latest. And Dr. John will also bring you the latest. He has more to say even from yesterday. I know he left a lot of you hanging. So we'll have that link soon. And I'll see you over in our live stream chat.
Okay, so I feel like she was extremely disrespected in her home by her kids, her husband. We know her husband was not respectful to her. But it seems like the kids weren't either. What a mess. What a darn mess. How's that? I mean, yeah, like her daughter acted like she wasn't in good shape. And first of all, I don't even care if she was able to keep up in Zumba and clogging. I don't consider myself lazy at all. I just don't. But there is no way I'm even going to act like I'm going to take a damn flogging class. Fuck no. I don't have rhythm. I don't have coordination, none of that. But I would never. That list looks way too hard. I mean, she wasn't allowed to play video games. She was a sole provider at the home. Yeah, talking about her cheating on her Fitbit and stuff. Wow. That is so messed up. I can't with these people.
Okay, no.
I smell something. I don't know what it is. But I don't like it. Anyway, I think that that was not a healthy home in any aspect whatsoever. These kids were being taught weird shit by their dad. And it's one thing, if, you know, if they had spent their whole life believing, like I think a lot of people might have, that their dad was a good man, a good husband to his wife and didn't cheat and stuff. That would be one thing. But they know now. Yeah. Right? So think about it, like, I don't know. I don't know. That's my thinking at first. Before I heard them on the stand, I thought maybe it was just so that they didn't lose another parent. But now I kind of think that they always acted like this. Yeah, exactly. But Chad doesn't own that home anymore. I can tell you, my son would never. My son would never let somebody badmouth me like that. He wouldn't. He has even told me before, Mom, I'm always going to have your back. You're not always right. You're not. But I'm always going to have your back. My son would never. Let people talk shit about me like that. And, you know, the thing is, though, the fact that they are okay with their dad killing their mom, because they are fibbing. You know what? If everything was good, why do they have to lie? Why do they have to lie? No, I know, Queen. I thought for sure them being on the stand was going to break my heart. And it doesn't. It just pisses me off. I agree. Sorry, I'm going to make some chicken tenders. Hey, Mirandy. What is going on? I know. What are they doing? You know what? When they lie about that cozy cone, that whole thing irritates the piss out of me. You know what? Lauren Matthias has up a short on that. Let me show you. Because they're so full of it. Yeah, they're live right now too. I can't stream that, but wait, let me see something. Oh, Silver Linings had one out 4 hours ago. I'm gonna watch that. Oh, she's already got a short up for that. For the okay. Okay, we'll watch this really quick, then we'll go. Miranda, go round around. You know what? Because most people, they're gonna have a hard time. So you're gonna have to give it to those kids probably, because most people are not trying to live somewhere where kids were buried. I'm sorry. I think it's a weird house anyway. Okay, you guys, you got to watch this.
Is that an example?
Here is a video proving that there are stairs in Chad Daybell's house. A lot of people might think that the loft is above the garage, but it's not, as you can see here. It's really eerie and heartbreaking seeing a video of Tammy here with her kids. And if you see here, she's about to open the door of the cozy cone right
See,
here.
they're from
Those are
outside.
blinds over windows, not garage doors. And this is the door Tammy is opening. And as the video zooms out, you see that this is a cozy cone where they have a loft upstairs. Oh, and look at this, beds upstairs in the cozy cone. So clearly not above the garage. Oh, and actually here's the garage. That's a chimney to the left right there. Do you see that in the garage? Okay, chimney right there. And take a look at this. This is where the actual garage is. Chimney, garage, that's the front of the house away from the cozy cone. No loft above that garage. And according to Ray Hermosillo, Chad Daybell did sleep upstairs.
Mark told us that his dad, Chad, was still asleep and directed us to Chad's room. So we walked us through the house and to the stairwell of Chad's room.
Here is a video proving that
See?
there are stairs in Chad Daybell's house. A lot of people might think that the loft is above the garage, but it's not, as you can see here. It's really eerie and heartbreaking seeing a video of Tammy here with her kids. And if you see here, she's about
See what I
to open
mean?
the door of the cozy cone right here.
He could have had.
Those are blinds over windows, not garage doors. And this is the door Tammy is opening. And as the
And see,
video
the
zooms
kid,
out,
the
you see
daughter
that
even
this is a
said,
cozy cone where they have
it's
a
kind of
loft
hard to get
upstairs.
to. It's not.
Oh, and look at this, beds upstairs in the cozy cone. So clearly not above the garage. Oh, and actually here's the garage. That's a chimney to the left right there. Do you see that in the garage? Okay, chimney right there. And take a look at this. This is where the actual garage is. Chimney, garage, that's the front of the house away from the cozy cone. No loft above that garage. And according to Ray Hermosillo, Chad Daybell did sleep upstairs.
Mark told us that his dad, Chad, was still asleep and directed us to Chad's room. So we walked us through the house and to the stairwell of Chad's room.
Here is a video proving that there are stairs in Chad Daybell's house. A lot of people might think that the loft is above the
Remember
garage,
what
but it's
Pryor
not,
did
as
to
you can
that
see
girl?
here.
Would it
It's really
surprise
eerie
you
and
to know that
heartbreaking
this
seeing
is
a
a
video of
one-story home?
Is that an example of confirmation bias when you take into account all of these other reports, documents, statements of people who are not present at the murder? Is that an example of confirmation bias when you take into account all of these other reports, documents, statements of people who are not present at the murder? Is that an example of confirmation bias
Oh
when
my
you take into
God,
account all
see?
of these other reports,
Wow.
documents, statements of people who are not present at the murder? Is that an example of confirmation bias when you take into account all of these other
Yeah,
reports,
I missed that.
documents, statements of people who are not present at the murder? Is that an example of confirmation
no.
bias when you take into account all of these other
Wow.
reports, documents, statements of people who are not present at the murder?
Chad was telling his
Is that
daughter.
an example of confirmation bias when you take into
Ah,
account all
yeah,
of these other
yeah.
reports, documents, statements of people who are not present at the murder?
Right.
Is that an example of
Oh my
confirmation
God.
bias when you take into account all
Oh
of these
my
other
God.
reports, documents?
That's right. Wow. Because they never mentioned children dead in the yard. That mattress. See, when is that going to come into play though? They want us, he wants us to act like nobody could sleep upstairs. Remember, there's no electric, there's no this, that, blah, blah, blah. You can see there are lamps, there's shit. He was up there. I think that, hey, pallets. Wow. Oh my God. Okay. Wow, I want to watch that body cam again now. What the fuck? He did. I want to watch it again. I know, Queen. I don't know how we missed that either. Who all was there, Pryor? Who all was there? Sorry, I knew somebody took off. I need to go get him. I know. I want to know about that mattress, though. Like, there's some kind of evidence on it. Okay, love you, Queen. What? Oh. Let's get something to eat first. Look, you want this? This? No? Yeah, he just wants candy. Can't lie, I'm about to bust out a candy bar myself. I am so blown away by this. I did hear that mattress thing. I just really didn't think much about it. Wow, wow. Wait, Jack. I've got to go back and watch that body cam because we're not believing it. Don't do that to me, please. Okay, guys, I better. I'll get myself busy here. It doesn't look like we have much on. I think this week's it. I think this week is it. I think so. I hope so. I sure hope so. I'm done with this crap. By Memorial Weekend, I want to already have a conviction. Okay, I'm going to get off here. Love you all. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.